Good evening. My name is Amy Ritterbusch, and this is the Select Board meeting for Tuesday, February 7th, 2023. I call the meeting to order. This meeting of the Select Board is being held both in person and remotely using the video conference platform Zoom. All members participating in the meeting are present in the meeting room. Muriel Kramer is not here yet, but will be joining us in person later. The public has the option of attending in person here at Town Hall or via Zoom using the link posted in this meeting's agenda. This meeting is being recorded. And our first item on the agenda is to move into executive session. So we were looking for a motion pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 3, to conduct strategy with respect to collective bargaining relative to police, fire, and communications union, because an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the board. Second, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 2, to consider strategy with respect to negotiations with non-union personnel, the police chief and town manager. And to approve executive session minutes from January 24th, 2023, to allow Norman Kamalo and Liz Lazarus to participate in the executive session, and to reconvene an open session at the conclusion of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
And we need a roll call vote.
Irfan Nasrullah, yes.
Mary Delafreniere, yes.
Shahid Manan, yes.
Amy Ritterbusch, yes. Great. So we will be back in about a half an hour. Okay. Good evening. My name is Amy Ritterbusch, and the Select Board has now returned from executive session. And our first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise if you're able. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. And our next item on the agenda is public comment. Please note that each person will have up to 2 minutes to speak at public forum. Please start by stating your name and address. And we will first go to people who are in the meeting room and then to people who are on Zoom. Is there anyone present in the meeting room who would like to speak at public forum? Okay, please come forward.
Just want to add that we are keeping all public comments at 2 minutes.
Hi, Kim Clark, 24 Bayview Street, and I'm opposed to the wreck.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak? Yep.
Frank Pazisco, 84 Haywood Street. I've only been in town since, well, I came to town when I was in the 3rd grade. I oppose to what you want to do to this town. I don't see the benefit. And if you do it, I think it should go before a town meeting, not just a group of people. That's my thought.
Thank you. All right, come forward.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Bengiovanni, 192 Spring Street, and I've been in town for over 40 years, and I oppose the regionalization. I know you've had a letter from me, and I just think it's the wrong thing for our town.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Just want to say for anyone who speaks, you can sit down.
Right.
I'm too tall for the microphone. Hi, my name is Karen Lowell. I live at 45 Hayden Row, and I'm opposed to the rec too.
Thank you. Yep, go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Kavanaugh, 25 Priscilla Road. Full disclosure, I know you all know I am a member of the school committee, but I am here actually on behalf of, as a parent of a child in the class of 2023, and I was looking through your agenda materials last week. I realized that there is an application before you tonight for the car parade that the seniors have done for the past 3 years. And I was looking through and looking at some of the concerns that were raised in the question of whether or not it's necessary, and I can't speak to whether or not it's necessary, but there are a lot of things that we do in town that are not actually necessary. I do think that it is one of the few things that came out of the pandemic for our students and for our community, I think, as well, that has been a positive thing. I think that, like our junior post-prom party, it's something that's being passed along to the parents and the students to plan, and I think that's appropriate at this point. It is my belief and also my expectation that any concerns that have been raised by our public safety officials would be able to be adequately addressed by the organizers of the parade, much like other events that we've had in town or that our annual traditions, the Horribles Parade, the various races, the Memorial Day parades, and back when we did the 300th parade, we were able to do it safely, and it is my hope that the organizers will be able to do that as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. So is there anyone else in the meeting room who would like to speak a public comment? Yep.
Tim Brennan, 151 Spring Street, and a member of the police department. I want to thank everyone for the continued discussions about the rec center. My experiences haven't changed. My opinion hasn't changed since the last time I spoke. Anybody I know that's been involved in a rec center, and when I was a detective, you kind of work with all the other departments, so you hear the stories. I haven't heard any positive comments about a rec center being better for a police department or a town. If there is no financial benefit to Hopkinton, I'm hoping that you folks will decide to end this discussion and end the search or the decision-making of whether or not we're going to go to a regional center. I think it's the wrong thing to do for Hopkinton. Our people are used to, our residents are used to a level of service that we provide. I think we provide a good level of service. Are we perfect? No. We strive for perfection. We haven't reached it yet, but we're getting there, and I'd like to see it stay the same as it is now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Lynn Arena, Front Street. I want to echo Nancy's sentiments, and thank you for that, and also say that I'm definitely opposed to the regionalization efforts. I had a personal experience with a parent that has dementia that wandered, and the only way we knew she was safe and okay was because of our dispatcher here in town, because that happened at 5:30 a.m. So please, it's not what's right for our town.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak? Yep.
Hi, Tom Pratt, 106 Fruit Street, and I oppose the regionalization also. I feel the town should keep things the way they are, and each town should have its own dispatches and things. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else in the room to speak? Okay.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. If they want you to cook the dinner, they ought to let you shop for some of the groceries. Sports fans out there know that that was a quote from Bill Parcells back in 1997 after he got done coaching for the New England Patriots. The problem he had was management didn't let him get involved and picking the players to play. They just wanted him to coach. He thought, as part of the organization, he should be involved. This is where, Madam Chair, I think the town dropped the ball. They did not include the policemen and the firemen and the dispatchers when they went forward on this process. The Collins Group talked to the police chief, the fire chief, the town manager, but they did not consult with the police and firemen, the men and the women who got the boots on the ground, the most important part of each department. As the police chief has told you numerous times, he builds from the ground up. And in my opinion, both those organizations, it's the firemen and the policemen that are most important, and they should be involved in any consideration for any changes on how the dispatching goes for the town of Hopkinton. Real quickly, I know on your website and Grafton and Southborough's website, select boards, there's been IMAs posted. The Grafton and Southborough seem to be similar. Hopkinton's IMA is different than those two. There was just a couple things in there through the chair. If you can clear up for the residents of Hopkinton. On number 5D, E number 2, it basically says, the secondary answering point radio dispatch system is to be operated, will be determined by the operations committee, E2, the non-emergency or business calls other than the 911 emergency line will be answered by the participating community's fire and police headquarters or such other place as the individual participating communities may designate. Clarification on that, it sounds like the REC will not be handling the business and non-emergency calls.
Okay, so we can talk about that when we get to the agenda item.
Yep.
As you may imagine, it's like herding cats. There's 4 select board chairs, there's 4 town managers and 4 town councils that have been working on this, and so there are different versions, and Mr. Kamalo can update us on the most recent.
We'll get that clear tonight on the IMA.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's funny. I know I printed out the most recent one now. I'm sure I have it here.
We're going to overflow, that's right. Good evening, Madam Chair, Select Board, and Town Manager. Chuck Wallace, Pinecrest Village. I just have a couple of concerns regarding the IMA, and I'm glad to see that some of my concerns were posted on the FAQs today. Just go back a little in history. At the Select Board meeting of December 6th of 2022, a question was posed about the IMA process. The response presented was the IMA is signed by the Selectmen. A follow-up question is if the IMA needed town meeting approval. The response was the governance section of the IMA may need town meeting approval. Research of the law and some of the information I was provided by the Select Board and the Town Manager shows that the powers for the IMA, for the Selectmen to authorize that, comes under General Law 6A 18P. That was actually established in January 2015. On January 6th of 23, when asked by a resident if town meeting is needed to create a district, the response was a district requires town meeting approval. An IMA is decided by the Select Board and no town meeting approval is needed. If the IMA creates a district, town meeting approval is required. According to General Law, Chapter 40, Section 4, that law was actually established, given the Select Board that authorization back in 2008, July 18th of 2008. At the Select Board meeting, the last meeting, January 24th of 2023, when reviewing the proposal of the IMA, an audience member asked if the district still needs approval. The response was it was learned that the law pertaining to creating a district has been recently updated. In the past, creating a district required town meeting approval. However, under the new law, towns sign an agreement to create a district. That law was actually Mass General Law 6A 18-0, which was established back in January 8th of 2015. At this point, with still many answered questions, we need to step back in order to fully vet this project. I understand this project will come to Hopkinton at some time, but now is not the time. I thank the Select Board and the Town Manager and the residents for all their continued due diligence on this project as we look forward to make the right decision for Hopkinton at the right time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may.
We'll touch on those points later, but do you want to, can you answer it briefly?
I just wanted to make sure that, Chuck, you received my complete response to your questions.
I did. Thank you very much.
It would be, okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the meeting room before I go to Zoom that wants to speak? Okay, and I don't see any hand raised on Zoom? No? Okay. Okay, so I think we're done with public comment, and for now, and we will move on to the consent agenda. Let's see. Okay, so the Select Board will consider the following consent agenda: approving the minutes of January 24th, 2023, accepting a gift to the ambulance fund of $115 from the Curtis Road neighborhood in memory of Julie Harris, to accept the donation to the Hopkinton Public Schools in the amount of $1,227 from the residents of Legacy Farms North Phase 3 that was raised through the Diwali event. And we will accept the resignations of the Carly Grant from the Youth Commission and Peter Johnson from the Upper Charles Trail Committee. Would any members like to break those items out for discussion?
I would. B and C.
B and C, break out.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, when I first came to the town hall, Julie Harris was our town nurse, and very well known by everybody, and was frequently used by the public, and did a lot of work here at the town hall. And she was here before I came and after after I left. And lovely, lovely, wonderful person, and she will be greatly missed in town, and we're very sorry for her loss. And then I also wanted to thank the people from Legacy Farm for their donation to the public schools of $1,227. I want to make sure that they are thanked properly for that donation. And we have 2 resignations, and I just want to thank them very much for their participation in town government. And Carly Grant and from the Youth Commission, and Peter Johnson from the Upper Charles Trail. He was an associate member. I thank them for their time and efforts. That's all.
So, Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda. Mary Jo has actually spoken her part.
Yeah, okay. All 4 items, yep.
Yeah, all 4 items.
Okay.
Second.
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Do we need to do roll call?
Any opposed or abstain? No, because Muriel, when she comes, she's going to come in person, I think. Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Regional Emergency Communications Center. So the Select Board will consider Hopkinton's participation in a Regional Communications Center and review a draft intermunicipal agreement between Southborough, Grafton, Westborough, and Hopkinton. The the Select Board will take a formal position on the IMA on February 14th, 2023. So to start with, I think probably Norman and I should go over the recent addition to the IMA, is that right?
Yes, we could do that, as well as on TV is an official from State 911 who has made himself available to answer any questions from the community.
So could we liven up Joseph Crean?
Yes, Joseph Crane, he is from the State 911 department. And there have been many questions regarding how this actually operates at that level, and he made himself available to answer questions tonight.
Okay. Do you want to go over the changes to the IMA first? Or do you want me to summarize? I'm not sure I'll remember them all.
Can you get closer to your microphone? Hear you, please.
Is that better?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
You can hear me though.
Okay, so how do you think we should proceed? Talk about the IMA first, the changes?
Perhaps have the conversation with the State 911 official that
Okay.
lays the context, and he may answer the broader questions that the public and the board may have.
Okay. So welcome. So does he have something prepared, or we should ask him our questions?
Ask fire questions.
Okay. So does anyone have questions?
Yeah, for example, Shadul, in the past you have had specific questions on the metrics that could be established for such a center. The individual on the phone has worked on these issues. He has indicated to us that there may be, the state may not have a system for collecting such data currently. However, it's an idea that is well received by him.
Do you want to ask your specific question that you'd asked last time?
No, I think that is one question I had. The other one I believe we had was related to the cost and cost savings proposition. But I don't want to go over all the same comments again, but I didn't see that taken out from the Q&A like I suggested.
Yeah. The question regarding cost is twofold. For us, there are costs that we can identify individually. For example, we have identified that if this process moves forward, the district will have the opportunity to apply for development grants. That's one example of an individual cost. The other side to the conversation is what we normally refer to as the cost-benefit analysis, where you develop two sets of data. On the one hand, you catalog all the costs that pertain to a project. And then you line them up alongside the benefits of the project. And given where we are in terms of looking into this concept, that exercise has not been done. So in answer to that question, we may identify some individual costs, but not all of them. And because of that, we are unable to complete a cost-benefit analysis.
Thank you, Norman. My suggestion again, I want to repeat what I said the last time. Let's take it out because it's not conclusive. And providing it as a conclusive argument is misinformation, in my view. That's all. And
Okay, so would you like, should we ask Joseph Green from the State 911 if there are concrete cost savings?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. So would you be able to speak to that a little bit?
Yes, good evening. In terms of concrete cost savings, I can't give you that analysis. That is something that the Collins Center would have to work with you on. The department doesn't really collect data outside of that.
Excuse me. Okay.
So,
Okay,
if I may, through the chair, does that mean the 48 or so towns, or was it 48 regional centers?
48%.
48% of the towns who's been using this for the last 4 or 6 years, we don't have any data to track if they actually made the commitment of cost savings based on the projections when the original propositions were made? Because I bet for each of those propositions, cost savings was an argument, which, conceptually to us also made sense in the beginning, but was not substantiated by data. So are you suggesting you don't have any data that you have collected in the last 6 years on the 48% that has adopted it that can substantiate the argument or the ambition for it?
Nothing that has been reported to the department. The department doesn't collect that data. That is information that you as a town can ask these 48% of the communities that are involved in regional centers, but we don't, the department doesn't require that as a reporting mechanism.
We need more time.
Thank you, understand.
Through the chair, what about increased service through regionalization? Has the service increased, decreased? How has that worked? Various towns.
In terms of what service are you kind of referring to, like service response times or?
Response times, overall, we're hearing a lot of community objection, saying that if it's not broken, don't fix it. And so what is the real benefit here? Response time?
Yeah, again, APIs or key performance indicators are something that are not provided to the department. It's something we don't require as of right now. So I can't give you concrete factual information as to whether or not there are service level improvements. I can speak to my time as a deputy director at a regional center that there were service level improvements that we're seeing. Outside of that concrete level, I could advise that you reach out to the 31 regional centers and speak with their directors.
So one of the concerns that I've heard is familiarization of local dispatchers within the town is something that would be lost. And actually, a friend of mine works for a company that sells dispatch equipment and talking about regionalization. He was telling me that the tech is getting to the point where that is no longer a concern. Is that something that you could speak to?
Absolutely. Look, the loss of local knowledge is a con, and that's something that I explained to the town manager in an email. That is a con, the loss of local knowledge. However, there are ways around it. The tech is a start, right? There's companies like Rapid SOS who are able to provide pinpoint accuracy. The state's next-gen 911 system is the location accuracy for wireless devices has gotten damn near close to 90% accurate of where a wireless call is. You're not going to know where I am myth of joining a regional center. There are ways to combat it. If you hire a police or a firefighter who isn't from town, how do they learn the town? They come out and they ride the town. I can tell you that as a deputy director of the regional center that I was at prior to coming to the state, we instituted a ride-along program, and it was for new hires, yes, but it was also for veteran staff to keep learning the town geography. So the technology is out there to be able to kind of combat that loss of local knowledge.
I wanted to take a minute too. If Shannon was going to speak, I think on behalf of the dispatchers, if you want to come to the table in case you have questions as well. Are you done with your questions? I think my main question too, and I don't know if there is, so with 48% of the towns in Massachusetts already being part of a regional center, is there a timeline for when, will all towns eventually have to do this? And is there a timeline for when that would be? Is it 5 years, 20 years?
Yeah, so right now, the state, we don't mandate. And I'm not here to push regionalization on anybody, and I'm not here to force it. We don't force anything. We incentivize. We're not like the state of Maine. The state of Maine had about 74 PSAPs, and they had a state law that said, hey, we're going to cut it down to 24. That is something that right now I don't foresee happening anytime soon. We incentivize. It's kind of if you want to join, great. If you don't want to join, then we will continue to support you as best we can. But I don't foresee any sort of every single town being forced into a regional center. I don't foresee that. It would have to take a legislative change, and right now that's something the department isn't interested in.
Okay, and there's a grant cycle this year, and the application is due in March. Is there a grant cycle every year to come, or?
Yes. Every year the development grant is there. The development grant is funded via the cell phone surcharge, or the wireless surcharge on your cell phone device, the Now One fee.
Okay. All right, Mary Jo, did you have questions that you wanted to ask?
Just the most asked question that I get is, they want very short answer, is what is the advantage to the town? The bottom line advantage to the town if it's not financial.
I can't speak to that per se. I can tell you the advantages out there of replacing aging equipment that's there. That's a cost savings, but outside of what's the bottom line advantage for the town of Hopkinton, I can't speak for that, as I'm not a resident, I'm not a member of the public safety agencies in the town.
Through the chair, I was wondering if you can give us a sense of how many towns that you have heard or experienced ended up backing off from this arrangement. Do you have any such data?
Do you mean after they already joined?
After they already joined?
Okay.
Or even initial agreement?
Yeah, so off the top of my head, Beverly was interested in joining the Essex County Regional Center. After they kind of signed the agreement and realized it wasn't going to be a fit, they opted to back out. That was dealt with at litigation at the sheriff's level. The city had to pay basically what I equate to an early termination fee of $220,000 to back out of it. Outside of that, Mendon and Millville were a regional center. They decided sometime into it that they did not want to do the regional game anymore. So they were transferred into the Metacomet in Franklin.
Thank you. And do you have any data about the top reasons they provided for backing out?
That I do not know. That was prior to me joining the department, and I don't know if there's anything on there. I can do some digging here in the department and see what I can find for you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm sorry, through the chair, just clarification.
I see Muriel didn't speak yet. Do you?
But you can go ahead, but I will, thank you.
Just a clarification, those two towns, Millville and Mendon, what did you say? Did they switch to a different regionalization center, or did they?
Yes, they were a regional together. Mendon and Millville were a regional together, and then decided that it just wasn't what they wanted to do, so they went into the Metacomet in Franklin.
Okay, so they went to a different rec.
So they're still regional, but a different one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So my apologies to everybody for arriving late. It couldn't be avoided tonight. So if I do ask a question that has already been asked, I will follow up and watch the tape. So don't waste the meeting's time. So part of the struggle that we're having is that yes, we have an awful lot of opposition locally, and that's very meaningful. What, in your experience, I guess I'm looking for a more experiential response. In your experience, what are sort of the common challenges when towns make this decision, and what are their commonly experienced benefits? Is there emerging data that towns have joined these regional centers and seen improvements or have benefited in some way from your experience?
Yeah, in terms of the general experience, right? I will say that you guys are one of the more transparent regional processes that I've been a part of or been able to see. It's not always the case. I'm right now compiling a study of where regionalization has gone. That's one of the first projects that I was tasked to take on when I joined the department in July of last year. And part of the best practices that we see is when these hard questions aren't asked or aren't discussed, that's where you run into your major issues. So kudos to all of you guys for really digging in and asking these tough questions and asking involving the public and the dispatchers, because that's another piece of it, is they're always the last to know. In terms of the general experience, it is always the piece of lack of local knowledge is always a big hit, and the what's in it for us kind of mentality. My personal experience with it, yes, there are benefits to service levels, especially if you are a single stream, one person on dispatch. If you move into a regional center, you have more people that are dedicated to your call takers, more people that are dedicated to dispatching just resources. They're not having to do call taking and dispatching together. Because at some point you're going to have to be forced to sacrifice, whether it be a response time or whether it be giving somebody a life-saving CPR instruction, because you have to figure out, well, am I going to send help or am I going to give CPR instructions first? So the benefits to response times is kind of that big area, the big check, I guess I would say, the big pro. Outside of that, it's all community dependent. If you have aging infrastructure, this is a way to update that without having to have that major capital cost.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to make this sort of overall general point that it has been beyond frustrating. I've heard Chadwell ask it many times, and my other colleagues ask it. And it's not necessarily on you, sir, but the lack of comparable data is a stunning gap for these kinds of decision making. I just don't know, without knowing what, how one service compares to another service with some concrete experience is a bit of a leap. What you just said about having one person on, I totally get it. For some towns who can only put one person on, I get that is an improvement. But we've been fortunate to support a different kind of service level in Hopkinton, so we don't have that experience. This is just hard.
Okay. Yeah, the lack of comparison or compatible data is something for me that is astounding as well, and why I'm trying, and in my new role here in the department, to collect the data. It is an arduous process. It's not easy. It's a lot of data to sift through. One thing I can recommend is working with Mr. Kennedy in the Collins Center to see if he can provide something for you. But outside of that, the department doesn't really require PSAPs to provide any of that sort of data, but it is something that I can take back to the executive director and deputy executive director to kind of see if there's a way we can pull that data, because quite honestly, there are no systems in place right now within the department to be able to collect and store the data.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate your questions. You mentioned.
I agree with your one.
I think Shai was.
Okay, I didn't know. I said through the chair and I didn't.
Oh, sorry.
It'll be quick. So the project that you are on, I think they'll help with collecting, I'm assuming, and your assessment since you have joined recently. Do you know when that will be available, or you'll have that?
I have a tentative plan to have it out by the spring of 2023. It is a very lengthy process. There's a lot of reviewing that's going on right now, so I can't stamp it official as of, I'll have this done by the spring of 23, but it's my goal to have it completed and ready to go for 2023, or the spring of 23.
Thank you.
My job, sorry.
No, I was just going to ask you, do you have data out of the 48% of the towns that have joined the REC? What part of the state are they mostly coming from, and are they mostly smaller towns with one or two dispatchers, or
there's actually
are they bigger towns?
There's a map on their website. You can see yeah.
Sure. Yeah, we do have a map on the website that I can share with you when you get to you, but if you give me a second, I can pull it up. And primarily where we see the most saturation, I guess, is the western part of the state. The Berkshire County Sheriff's Department handles, I believe it's 39 communities. And those are relatively smaller communities, some that are handled by the state police in terms of law enforcement. And you can come further here to the East Coast or the eastern side of the state, and there are larger communities involved in regional centers. Right now, the western and central Mass part seem to be where it's growing the most, and that there is interest in the Cape. We have meetings set up all next week with some areas down on the Cape to start a process down there. But the western part, and it is the smaller communities.
Thank you.
Okay, so I did tell Shannon that she could speak tonight too at the table. So do you have any questions for Joseph?
I do not, no.
Okay. So did you want to go ahead and give us your perspective?
I would, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Shannon Casey, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Hopkinton Dispatch Union. We wanted to express our opposition to joining, and we hope that you, the select board members, will make the right decision for the town of Hopkinton. We all want what is best for the residents of the community, and we understand that a decision like this is difficult and does not come lightly, as we've discussed many times. We hope at this time the board votes to not move forward with this IMA so that we can continue to evaluate the data and explore all avenues to what is best for Hopkinton and not in a rushed manner. Over the last few months, members of the board have heard opinions from employees and residents alike on the idea of joining a rec. The opinions that have been expressed have been overwhelmingly against the idea. The few that have been in support of the rec have been involved in discussions about a regional center since the process started several years ago. However, it should be noted that it was only brought to the select board and residents' attention about 4 months ago. After attending a select board meeting in Southborough, it was apparent how far along in the process Hopkinton actually was, and we as a union started making the board and residents aware. We all should have been involved long before this. The board and the residents should have more time to think on this issue and should not be rushed into the timeline set by the other communities if they are ready to move forward. Hopkinton currently staffs 2 dispatchers on at all times and staffs a 3rd when it is needed. Based on the staffing of the rec, the increased call volume and call priority system, which may change the experience that Hopkinton residents currently receive. The police officers have expressed via their union that they do not support joining a rec, and while the fire union has not publicly made a statement on if they support it or not, myself and Union President Rob Savolt spoke to their union at their last meeting, and they asked many questions and expressed concern over the lack of information that they have been provided. We currently have a great mutual aid system that's worked for many years. We don't have issues getting responders on scene. We have great response times. We answer calls within 3 seconds. Many of us are dispatching within 30 seconds to a minute. As you're trying to get more info from the caller, I mean, if the caller doesn't give you the info, you can't dispatch the call. Chief Miller spoke out about hypothetical calls and how the staffing of the rec would improve the service. However, we currently have 1 call taker and 1 dispatcher solely for Hopkinton that work as a team, and they can interchange, they can help each other out, they can both listen in on calls. I can say with certainty, based on one of our dispatchers' personal experience working in a regional center, as well as speaking with current dispatchers that work in recs, that calls that are not high priority may have a delay when call volume is high or another town is having a critical incident. We want to reiterate that residents will not get the same quality of service, nor will they receive the time that they do now when they call. We're able to provide personal one-on-one services to residents, and that will not be the case in a rec, and our residents deserve more. A local regional center employee stated they don't see a benefit to joining a regional center, providing examples that put their first responders and resident safety at risk. For example, sending responders to the wrong address. Because again, the call taker and dispatcher are separate. They don't both listen in on the call. You're getting, the dispatcher is getting what is typed into their screen. Mistakes happen. A call taker is responsible for gathering the info, and the dispatcher reads it from the screen. They also shared how their radio reception isn't great in certain areas of town. They've been unable to communicate with officers on critical calls. In an email, the deputy fire chief in Franklin stated he regrets joining a rec and that it feels as if they went back 10 years in technology. Keep bringing up technology. Hopkinton currently has the same tech that these recs do. NextGen 911, it's standard across all dispatch centers. We also use Rapid SOS, which can pinpoint locations. However, sometimes people call when they're driving and the emergency's back here. And again, the local knowledge, if someone says Cookie's Corner, Grafton person's not going to know where that is, or Westboro or Southboro. And, you know, we keep mentioning that not all of us grew up in town and we had to learn it over the years, but years, you know, and now you're asking dispatchers to learn at least 3 other, maybe 4, if it's an outside dispatcher that gets hired. They also, employees of local recs have also noted that they may be planning to leave centers soon as a result of constant changes made by the management, which have created not only negative working environment, but increased stress, burnout, and increased workload. Most recs have high turnover due to the corporate-like chain of command instead of a close-knit family-type team atmosphere that we currently have. Hopkinton is lucky enough to have dispatchers with 15 years of service, 8 years of service, and 3 with over 5 years of service. You don't find that in rec centers. This shows that people don't want to leave Hopkinton. You know, they want to continue to dedicate their time to serving the residents. All 4 towns do things differently. That really hasn't been discussed on how that's going to work, whether it's codes or, you know, responses and whatnot. Recs claim that they standardize everything and they make everything uniform. However, we hear the opposite from officers and dispatchers that work for recs and centers. A Westboro Select Board member mentioned that their current dispatchers aren't all from town, and, sorry, I already said that about taking years to learn the geography. One of the main topics of discussion involves us being in the onset of the rec for the purpose of having a say in how it is staffed and the policies and procedures that will be implemented. In a district model, the board of directors that is made up of representatives of each town will have a say, and in most cases, it will come down to a majority vote for how the center is run and operated. For example, when the board last spoke on the IMA, it was highlighted that minor language change was not possible due to Hopkinton being outvoted by the other communities. Hopkinton wanted the word shall used for outlining the staffing levels, but ultimately the word may was used. It should be understood that what Hopkinton wants on other aspects of this rec, of how this rec operates, could be outvoted by the other communities. Also, in the January 24th Select Board meeting in Westboro, a board member expressed their concern in losing some control if they join a rec. There is still the dark station concern. Yes, we've been promised that Hopkinton will not have a dark station. However, there's been no solution, plan, or cost of said solution. We were also told if it was district run, it would require a town vote, and now that's not the case. The town should be made aware of the plans that will be implemented to achieve this promise, along with being able to fully be involved in the process to voice their opinion at town meeting, even if the vote is purely for census purposes. As dispatchers, we enjoy being able to interact with the public face-to-face when they walk in. That's a huge part of the job, you know, putting a face to who you're calling in an emergency or when you need help. And we'll lose that if we go to a rec. You know, there won't be that place to go anymore. You know, we're just another resource for the town, whether it's mental health or elder services. I mean, I can't tell you how many phone calls I take on the business line, but it could just be an elderly woman asking for directions, and I go on to Google, and I find directions, and I walk her through it, and then we talk about the weather, and now she's laughing, and she has a great day. That's not going to happen with a rec center. In conclusion, with the lack of statistical data, lack of answers for questions that have been raised, and the short deadline to apply for this year's grant cycle, which has led to pressure from the other communities involved to rush this decision, the town should not move forward with the IMA at this time. Let's involve the residents, the dispatchers, the officers, the firefighters, and all the people that have the knowledge of the profession and those that would be affected by this massive change in operations. Let these new recs form, work out all the bumps, try to collect some data, while Hopkinton continues to receive the highest quality of dispatch services. There is no rush. We just heard it. We're not going to be forced. It could be 10 years, 20 years, or we may never have to join a rec. We do have a choice here. Let's work together as a team, while again including all those that would be affected, and come up with the best possible plan for Hopkinton. We are Hopkinton, and we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so should we go over the changes to the IMA or wait till next week? Or
We could do that very quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this has changed a little bit more since we got our packet on Friday, right? Okay.
Yeah, correct. So we will speak in very broad terms. As was, I think, pointed out and explained earlier, there are various versions that are floating around. I believe now, are working within a system that will have a single version. In terms of the process, earlier on, I think Shannon did point out that as part of these negotiations, there are instances where we've been elbowed out. Yes, that's what happens in negotiations. You get some, you lose some. It's a question of give and take. It's not a winner-take-all process. And to that end, items that have been of interest to Hopkinton that are in the IMA, number one, the acknowledgement of the high levels and quality of services provided to the community. We have included under the witnesses section 2 statements that address that issue. For example, whereas certain participating communities have and maintain existing municipal 911 emergency communication facilities that provide high levels of service. So that's acknowledged as the context and the background from which this discussion occurs. Secondly, there has been a discussion around the term of the IMA if it moves forward. Currently, the IMA identifies a 25-year term. We are looking into whether it's possible to actually have a 30-year term. Here in town, there has been a strong conversation regarding some form of town meeting vote. We had an extended discussion with our partners on this topic, and the language that we settled on has a 2-step approval process. The IMA shall be executed by the participating communities before February 24th, 2023. I can hear the sign. Part 2. Any participating community has until June 30th of 2023 to withdraw from the agreement. What does this mean for the community? It means that should the town or the select board decide to take this to town meeting, Hopkinton can. So again, it's a 2-step process. Sign the IMA by February 24th, and you have until the end of June this year to withdraw.
So this would allow us to do a town meeting vote even though it is not required by law?
Exactly.
Okay.
Thirdly,
Did we put this on town meeting?
We would have to open a special town
special
meeting
town
warrant
meeting
and do a special town meeting within the annual town meeting.
Okay, thank you.
yeah, I want to make sure everybody heard that.
I'm sorry. I was asking about whether it was on the warrant for town meeting,
So the
and
annual-
it is not.
The
So
annual
we-
town meeting is closed, but we could open a special town meeting which could be held at the exact same time as the annual town meeting, and we could add a question about...
Is that a binding vote, Madam Chair?
Say it again?
Would that be a binding vote?
Well, we would have to write the warrant article that way, right?
Town council will have to decide that.
Town council would.
Yeah.
Okay.
There have also been questions around what happens during the transition. The language that we have added clarifies that the participating communities recognize that the Metro West REC will be renovated and outfitted with new equipment by the district. So there's language that specifically identifies the equipment that will need to be in place for the transition to occur. You will also notice that whilst this is not included in the transition phase, there's now language that clearly identifies each town's responsibility in identifying and listing its existing employees. I'll address that later. There was a question earlier on asked about the secondary answering point and radio dispatch. The language that you read, I'm trying to remember who read that, whether was it Pat? Yes. Yeah, that language has now been revised. It's been revised to acknowledge that we also have alternate public safety answering points, which therefore now will allow the REC to receive and process emergency calls on pre-identified phone numbers other than 911 lines, e.g. alarm calls, hotline calls, animal control, etc. And then we were also interested in finding a way to address some of the questions that have come up with regard to the participating communities continuing to have control on the process. We previously mentioned the operations committee, where the fire chief and the police chief would be members of that committee. We previously mentioned the chief executive board, where in this instance, the town of Southborough may be represented by a select board or its town administrator. The other towns will be represented by their chief administrative officers. We have also now clarified that the executive director will be responsible for reporting on a quarterly basis to each of the participating communities. And then with regard to staffing, as we previously reported, we have added language that sets a guideline for the executive director as decisions on how to staff the facility. The discussion that we continued subsequent to the last select board meeting was around the may and the shall. And clearly, the sentiments and the consensus of the group was that if we are hiring an executive director, we should give them the opportunity also to choose the groceries and what type of groceries to bring on board. And therefore, we're staying with the word may. And last but not least, there were questions previously with regard to the fiduciary responsibilities of the district. Again, we're clarifying that during the transition, the town of Westboro could be the fiduciary party, supporting the district in terms of procurement, financial planning, and so forth, and the treasury functions. However, as soon as the district is established, those responsibilities will fall under the district. So I believe, Amy, in summary, those are the changes that we discussed this week.
I think this maybe is not a change, but I just wanted to point out, too, that it does offer preference in hiring to those persons previously employed by the 911 centers of any of the 4 towns, with their preference over any similarly qualified employee from not one of the 4 towns.
Yep.
Does that? I can't remember if that was in it last time or the wording changed, but...
Yeah, it was in. The only piece that we have now removed under the staffing provision is the reference to unemployment being paid by the district for any employees who are laid off during the transition. We did agree that at that point, before everybody moves into the district, the participating towns will be responsible for the unemployment insurance.
And then eligible employees will be entitled to participate in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts retirement system. I can't remember if that was a new addition.
That was in the
last week's
revision.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I think those are all the changes I recall, too. So this will be in our packet for next week.
Can I ask, can we get it ahead of time? Can we get it, like, right away, if the new version is available?
I guess we could do that. The problem, like, it's 4 towns, and there's 4 attorneys, and there are changes back and forth, like, all day. So maybe yeah.
Yeah, so
change one word
I'm
or
not
something.
frustrated with you as I say this, but that's a really hard target to hit, right? So we at some point have to be talking about a document.
Yeah, so our packet deadline is...
The same, yes.
So we're going to be voting on this next week. So the packet deadline is Friday, so we shouldn't expect any more changes after Friday, right?
Yeah, in fact, I believe the changes that are reflected in the current document are the last substantive changes.
Okay.
For the group to review. Everything else, I think, going forward will be housekeeping. So we will
notice typos, things like
we
that.
will share the current version broadly, and we hope that the substantive issues do not change when we meet next Monday.
Okay.
Yeah, the one thing that may change, I have not seen the responses. We did point out that previously we had talked about getting a qualified project manager to lead this process going forward, rather than relying on the town managers, the police chiefs, the fire chiefs, and the communications directors, that there be somebody dedicated for this. That provision dropped out of the current version, so we have indicated that perhaps we need to revisit that topic.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Sorry. Okay, but I think we do need to close this out because we have 13 budgets to review tonight. So,
I just want to, clarification on one of the questions that was asked, which was, is the town meeting vote binding? And I think the answer I heard was that we need to check with town council.
Correct.
So we need that answer before.
We need that answer before we can vote as a board next week. Because if we take it to town meeting and it doesn't mean anything, why are we taking it to town meeting? You know, our vote next week would have a lot more impact.
Yeah. Again, my reading, I'm not pretending to be town council, but my reading of the law is, with the change in 2015, yes, the authority to approve a district was put in the hands of the select board, but nothing in that law prohibits any town from taking it to town meeting. That's the question I'll be posing to town council.
Please, I think we need that answer before we can vote on this.
And can I just say, through you, Madam Chair, and Irfan, correct me if I'm wrong, we could still, even if, let's say it's a non-binding vote, this select board still has the authority to make the decision depending on what the vote is from the public.
Till June, in June 2023.
So I mean, I want the answer too, for sure, but there are some avenues too.
Sure.
And the other part is, we could craft the warrant in a way that it can be binding, but we'll need a concrete answer to that.
Yeah.
Through the chair, I wanted to understand one thing. I like Muriel's suggestion, if we can get it as quickly, that would be great. And version control. There are 3 versions.
It's the hobgoblin.
So that'll be another. Third question, maybe you have it in your head and you mentioned it when you were describing it. I didn't catch all of them, which is, we talked about the early adoption advantage. It didn't come out directly. What exactly is our advantage in this by going in now versus 5 years later? If we can articulate that, that would be also helpful to understand.
I think one of the things is the preference in hiring, that if we join one in 5 years, the staff will already be there, so we would not be able to get as many of our dispatchers into a new center if we wait. Are there other benefits, or we could ask Joseph?
Yeah, in fact, I think if you look at the FAQs, we have attempted to address that question. We will continue to explore it and provide the information to the board for your next meeting.
Okay, Mary Jo.
Through the chair, I have a question for Mr. Green.
Yep.
You having been a rec director, when it comes to backup communities, do you only use the community? These questions asked me a few times. Have you only used the communities involved in the rec, or do you go beyond? I was going to say, in other words, if we join this rec, we only have 2 communities right next to us that could be used for backup, whereas the biggest communities for our backup are not going to be in the rec. And would they still be our major call communities?
Absolutely. Are you talking more so like mutual aid if you had a major fire, who would be responding? Is that what you're? Yeah, none of that would change by joining a rec. That's all decided by your fire departments and their running cards. I can say that at my rec, we had first 2 engines that were not part of the regional system. What joining the rec does is, in the improvement side, is it delays or takes away having to either call on the radio or pick a phone up. Yet at times you do have a center that's online and listening and understands, okay, Hopkinton needs an engine, I gotta start it now. But none of that, if a community is not part of the regional system, it doesn't mean they will not respond to your community.
Does that answer your question? Or more questions?
Not fully, but.
So, can we give an example? So Ashland is
How
one of our.
does that happen? Is the rec, in other words, is the rec going to get in touch with Milford and say Hopkinton's having a problem? Or are they going to tell Hopkinton to call Milford? I mean,
or will Milford be able to?
So that will all be, I'm not sure if I'm understanding. In terms of mutual aid, none of that is going to change. Chief Miller and his running cards and his mutual aid order and the police chief's mutual aid agreements, none of that changes by joining the regional system. Just because you're in a regional system and communities that you rely on are not, does not mean that they cannot respond into your community. Who would initiate that would be the regional center. It would be the regional center's job to report to the neighboring community that's not part of the regional system that, hey, I need an ambulance, or hey, I need a police officer to meet at this address.
But for example, Ashland is not part of this agreement. But say
no, Milford, Ashland, and Holliston all should be.
Right. But so say the ambulance was needed near Ashland. Would Ashland be already listening into our call to know that, or we would have to call them? Is it?
So it depends. You'd have to call them. I can't speak for how they do their business, but if they have a dispatcher that's well versed in listening to the radio and hearing what's going on, they may be able to say, hey, get the engine started because Hopkinton needs it.
Okay.
But as a formality, there should be a call either through radio or through a phone to say, hey, we need a mutual aid response.
Okay. Okay, are we all set for tonight? Okay. Okay, I think we're done with the rec center agenda item for tonight, and then we're going to move on to the parade permit application for the Hopkinton High School car parade. So do we have representatives of the class of 2023? Okay, so the select board will consider approving a parade permit application for the class of 2023 to be held on Saturday, June 3rd, with the starting point being the Hopkinton High School and the Center of the Arts entrance, ending back at the high school. So would you like to introduce the project to us? Okay, and you state your name and address for the record. Yeah.
I'm Shelby Jones, address 5 Courtney Circle, Hopkinton, and I'm the class president of the class of 2023.
And my name is Daniel DeLeva, 43 Blueberry Lane, and I am the student council president for the high school.
Okay.
So to start off, we'd like to say that we are the last class who experienced a COVID interruption in the high school. We were in our freshman year when COVID interrupted our school year, and we believe that it would be great to have this parade to kind of tie together as the last class who experienced COVID.
One of the biggest things for concern was the lack of attention for and want by the students. We sent a survey out to the class, and we had, out of all our results, we had an 89% people would like the parade this year, and that's from all of our students.
And in terms of safety, we're willing to work with the police and fire in order to make sure that the parade is safe for everyone. The route has been modified. It's a lot shorter than previous years. It previously was 6.5 miles, and now we have shortened it to 4.2 miles. And also this year, we've eliminated some of the main roads that were crossed in previous years, as well as only taking right turns on this route.
One of the biggest reasons for this event as a community, I think is really important is there's not a lot of events for that recognize the seniors that family can come to, that the community can really be involved in. Graduation has a limited number of seats for families, so this is an event that really gets the community really involved. One of the biggest points for the school committee is they follow the 3 C's, which are the community, culture, and communication, and I think this is very well into that, involving the community and getting them active and really celebrating everything that seniors have done.
I know that there are younger kids who come to the parade who really enjoy seeing the seniors graduate and celebrate that accomplishment. It's really exciting. I remember going to my own sister's car parade and going to my neighbor's car parade in 2020, the first year that it was done, and I just believe that it's a great community event that people really enjoy. And also, as the last point, it will only last around 1 hour. Based on last year's parade, we used the numbers 200 to 250 cars as an estimate, and again, it does not cross any of the main roads.
Okay, thank you. Do we want to have the fire or police chief come up and express their concerns too?
Sorry, we couldn't hear what you said in the back.
Sorry, would the fire or police chief like to come forward to express, they had some concerns? Would the fire chief want to come up? Or, yeah, I see.
Just slide a chair up, Bill.
Good evening. Chief Bennett's coming as well, too. Through you, Madam Chair. As I understand, this process was started back during the height of COVID, and due to students not being able to have a graduation. As we all know, the graduation was just pushed off, and there was a formal graduation, so the parade was done. I will not speak for my counterparts for the PD, but from the fire side, I do have a lot of concern with road congestion. The first year, I was part of it. Chief Bennett was part of it. I was already home, and the parade was still going on. An hour and a half, almost 2 hours later, the route was very long. Yes, it was condensed and a time down. The current route this year, they're looking to go down Ash Street. I do have grave concerns with Ash Street as it is very narrow. There's sidewalks that were placed. The road is very narrow as it is. We're still already looking at 4.2 miles, estimate of 100 to 200 cars. You're still looking an hour and a half to 2 hours of congestion of traffic. So I do have concerns for public safety, our equipment and apparatus trying to get through this event to get to an emergency in those areas. And we did have it happen the first year. We had a very difficult time getting down Chestnut Street for an incident, for a medical incident.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any additional comments, or is that sort of sum it up?
You said it very well. I checked with those that worked at the event last year, and some of them reported very angry motorists that were screaming at the detail officers. So it is disruptive. I'm very excited for you guys as you moved into your graduation. And, I want to support every community event I can, but I do feel it needed to be said that it does cause a massive traffic disruption. It does.
Okay. Okay, do board members have questions or comments?
I
have to go first. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, I just want to say Nancy Kavanaugh was here early this evening during the public forum time and supported this. I have given this a lot of thought, and it was a COVID activity to help out at that time. This is the last class that has been affected by the COVID epidemic, and I personally would like to see it go on this year, but I would like this year to be the last year.
Muriel, did you have a question or comment?
Yes. So first of all, I would like to congratulate the students who came forward and are presenting themselves incredibly well. This isn't necessarily an easy thing to do, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
I also take it very seriously what our public safety officials have to say. I love that freaking parade. I'm just going to say that, first of all. So maybe you know where this is going. And I didn't have children affected by it, but I have children who have graduated and went through college and had their experiences disrupted by COVID, and I get it. And my first year participating was my first year as a select board member, so it wasn't the first year you did it. I saw some things that I could improve in terms of safety. I saw parents in every car. Parents have different feelings about how to keep their own children safe, apparently. But if we can continue to make sure that we keep, that's the biggest thing for me. Inconvenienced motorists. I mean, we have the Little League Parade. I wouldn't change that for the world. We have the prom. That's a massive tie-up. I wouldn't change that for the world. We have back-to-school nights. We have concerts. All of those events are inconvenient, to be honest.
right? Voting is inconvenient on that strip. So that doesn't bother me as much, but safety, I mean, what these two gentlemen have to say about safety is a real big concern. And I just think that, to be honest, and maybe, you know, this is going to be a very unpopular opinion, but I think the COVID pandemic gave us a beautiful event. Like, I'd be delighted to see it continue, to be honest. And that doesn't mean that we don't take steps to make sure it's manageable and we attend to safety and we pick up after ourselves and all those things. But congratulations, I'm a yes for the parade, and I get it. It is inconvenient, it's difficult. We do have to attend to the concerns that public safety has and make sure we do it as well as we can. But congratulations and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Irfan, did you have any comments?
Yes, so through the chair, I mean, exactly what Muriel said, Ms. Kramer said. I mean, congratulations. I think it's a fantastic event. However, it was an exception for COVID, and things are different now. You are getting a graduation ceremony, and I want you to celebrate that and celebrate your graduation. But when we're looking at public safety, that's something that really hits hard for me. And I'm a no. It's not out of, I'm not saying no because I don't like you or I don't want, I think that when we're talking about public safety, I think we really need to keep that in mind. And that was an exception for COVID. And I don't think we need that anymore. I apologize. Sorry.
Yeah, through the chair. Along the same line, congratulations and thanks for stepping up. I think this is a wonderful event, and I'm all for such festivities that brings the community together and celebrates your achievement. And it's been great in the last few years. Understand COVID probably gave birth to it, but it's a nice tradition to nourish, and I'm also kind of in favor of continuing if we can. But on the same note, we definitely want to address the fire chief and police chief's concerns, and we take it very seriously. Public safety is prime, but I also think we are a marathon town. I mean, we can handle this. We can figure out a way to manage it and learn from what we have seen and what we have done. Maybe it's different route. Maybe it's some other measures that we take during horrible parades or during the marathon or during other events that we have. But I'm all for this type of celebration, and I think it's one of the things that our town and residents we love doing when it brings the community together. So let's look at the options and take the challenge to see how we can manage the public safety better, and even throw some guidelines for some of the challenges that we have seen. But I'd be a yes, and even for continuing it with tuning and learning.
Okay, so I've been on the fence about this. I really do take the officer's concern, the chief's concerns seriously. Like, they brought these concerns to us for 2 years in a row. And so like Mary Jo, I think I would be okay with approving it this year, but I think we should kind of draw the line that this is the end of the COVID classes, and the chiefs have serious concerns that we can't continue to do this indefinitely. Even though I have to say I really enjoyed it. I went in both 2020 and 21, and I enjoyed it. But I also, if somebody's having a heart attack and you can't get to them, that'll be on us, and we won't be able to undo that. So. Yeah, so I would be with Mary Jo that we could approve it this year, I think, with the modifications, but I think it should be on the condition that this is the last year. I don't know.
Through the chair, may I ask some questions?
Yeah.
So how is it different from Horribles Parade or even the marathon when we have larger population at times participating, or similar ongoing kind of blockage of time and roads?
Chief, I'll start with the marathon and then we can chime in together.
Sure.
Through you, Madam Chair. Marathon starts planning the day after the event stops. You have multiple road closures. You bring in 130 fire personnel. You bring in, I don't want to speak for the counterparts, probably close to 1,000 police officers to handle that. Again, roads are closed. We take a lot of time, put security measures and planning. There's no road closures here. There's no extra police officers, no extra firefighters. We're not doing anything. We're running a 4.2 mile, driving a 4.2 mile course with vehicles at a very slow pace that slows traffic down on some really windy, narrow roads. Your marathon is going down Main Street, one of your widest roads in town. So I'm not sure there's a good comparison between the two.
No, it's not. I agree completely. But Horribles Parade or something similar, it's probably more comparable, right?
Horribles Parade, yeah. We haven't done a Horribles Parade since the COVID, correct, Chief?
Yeah, we haven't done one.
but for decades.
Yeah, we haven't done a Horribles Parade in a long time.
But before that, we did that for a long time.
Can I say that the Horribles Parade is not 200 cars? It's
No, it really, we line a few vehicles up around the Common, and it goes down Hayden Road, cuts over Pleasant Street, and then back down to the Common. It was a matter of a half an hour.
probably a mile, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good points. So can we, through the chair, go for this year and maybe craft out what version can be accommodated next year onwards, if we
they come forward with.
Right. I mean, managing the safety and, of course, the public concerns that we have.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, through you, I'm not prepared to make it conditional. We get our votes at it as a board. If there are ways to continue to refine the event and make it, less problematic, I mean, I think that the students certainly and everybody involved, parents certainly, we're all in this together, right? If there are ways that we can adjust this parade and keep the happy, right? Everyone needs a little happy these days, and it really, when I had the opportunity to go, it's not just parents and seniors lining the streets; it's everybody out there celebrating you guys, and that's as it should be. So if there are refinements that can be made, I urge everybody on all sides to sort of be open to how we could structure this parade and still, like I said, keep the happy and maybe not, cause the concern with all the vehicles or the time, right? I bet there's ways to do this if we get a little creative. And I don't want to suck any of the joy out of it, and I know nobody else does either, right? But one more happy celebration of a bunch of kids in Hopkinton is not too many, right? One more hip hip hooray is a good thing.
Okay, so in the comments it says if the permit is approved, it would be recommended that 6 detail officers be hired to assist with traffic control. Is that agreeable to the applicant?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So
I'll make a motion to approve the parade permit.
With no conditions, then?
With no conditions.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think I'm going to vote no if there's no conditions. So, yeah, I don't know. Any all opposed?
No.
No.
Would you like to make a motion with conditions?
I'll make a motion that we continue with the parade this year for the last year, for the last graduating class that was involved in the COVID.
I would second that.
Can I ask for clarification? So what is that binding? Like next year there wouldn't be any plan, or there would be, again, could be a petition and we could reconsider?
I suppose we can always change our mind, but I would like to set the expectation that we're not going to do. I don't want the kids to get their hopes, next year's class of 24 already getting their hopes up right now that they can do it next year. I'd like them to have a different mindset.
Give some real thought to it.
Yeah, but if they come
But
back
they
to
could
us,
still come back, we
they
could
come
still
back and
reevaluate
they
it.
vote.
But
yeah, I have reservation. I can't understand, even if we can do horrible parades for years, we can do a version of this for years, in my view. And I don't understand why wouldn't we consider that. But I don't want to, be the roadblock on this year's, but this is probably not something
this year we're going to
yeah, even for next year's. I mean, why wouldn't we try to improve and find out a way to handle it, even if it's a smaller version or a more defined path that
We can't figure out a parade,
Yeah.
honestly. I don't know what, if we can't figure out a parade, I don't know what we're doing.
No, I mean,
The issue is the volume.
heard any
Okay, so we have a motion and a second
A
on
bunch
the
of smart
table.
people, really. A parade. Wow.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor? Aye.
So I'm going to vote for the parade with the conditions, because I can't do it any other way to get you your parade. But I have strong objections to this board making decisions for next board's opportunity.
I'm on the same board, exactly.
Any opposed?
And congratulations.
You got your
Amazing.
Thank you.
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Honestly, I don't mean to be a
Thank you.
meanie here.
No worries. Thank you.
I'm a no vote, yes.
Oh, with conditions you are not good?
Yep.
It's a no either way.
I'm a no either way, yeah. Enough.
Oh, and then Muriel said yes, so. Alcohol license.
Okay, okay, so next item is change of manager for the 110 Grill alcohol license. Okay, the select board will consider approving a change of manager for the Section 12 alcohol license for 110 Grill LLC to Anthony Carlucci. So, let's see. Do we have staff comments? Or is the applicant here?
I believe so, remotely.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Okay, do you want to introduce what you're trying to do here, and then we'll ask questions?
Yeah, so I took over as general manager back in June, and we just wanted to change over the name on the license from, I think it was Robert Nielsen, over to myself.
Okay. And then were there permanent team comments? I don't remember seeing those in the agenda.
We normally would do a background check on the manager, and we did not receive any adverse comments.
Okay. All right, so you recommend approval?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Do board members have any questions or comments?
No.
No.
Nope.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the change of manager from Section 12 alcohol license for 110 Grill to Anthony Carlucci.
Second that?
Okay, all in favor?
I'm just going to make the point that this is a much higher risk proposition, and we find it very easy to do this. I'll vote yes.
All right, all in favor? Or do we have a second?
Aye.
Aye. All right, any opposed or abstain? Okay. Okay, next we have our FY24 budget and capital hearings. The select board will conduct Thank you. Budget and capital hearings and review the requests of 13 different departments. Looks like, so are we going to go in the order that's on the agenda, Mr. Kamala, with DPW first?
Yes, please,
Okay.
John.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Do we have all printed documents, or just some are printed and some are in our packet?
Or will it be on the screen, or?
Yes, all documents will be on the screen.
Okay.
There were a couple documents that came in after the meeting packet
Okay.
was distributed. They are the ones that are at your places on your desk.
Okay, go ahead.
Through the chair, good evening. At our all-hands meeting, I described a visit from our mothers group who came in with their children, and I asked, what does the DPW do? And they said, you take care of the town. So our vision is to take care of the town through a world-class sustainable public works department. And our three big goals are sustainable water supply, service to all, and employee self-care. We accomplished that in FY24 through the following. Our personnel budget requests, we have no increases in our full-time employees. We have 29, and our seasonal and part-time remains at 5. The impact to our budget is 5.8% for all those employees, and that's primarily contractual. If you look at our operating budget, our highway division, there is a 9.6% increase, and that's primarily driven by proposed increase in our pavement management system and inflationary costs due to primarily fuel. Our tree warden budget, there's no change. Our snow and ice is no change. Our waste collection is proposing a 21.6% increase, and that's primarily for two reasons: contractual, and we now have to pay for the processing of our recyclables. Our water division, we are looking at a 27% increase, primarily because of the operation of the filtration plant at Fruit Street for PFAS removal, which adds $140,000 to our budget, and electricity costs, which are expected to go up some 64%. And finally, our sewer division is an increase of 6%, primarily driven by electric costs. For capital requests, we have 8. We are proposing drainage improvement on Wood Street. We've got some public water that's going across private property causing flooding. Similar situation on Downey Place. We are looking to reconstruct Pratt Way, which is the driveway access out to the Fruit Street fields. We are proposing, at the request of the cemetery, to reconstruct Mount Auburn and Evergreen Cemetery's roadways. We are proposing replacement of a 2005 street sweeper, a 2005 loader, a 2005 backhoe, and a 2005 dump truck. In summary, that is our proposed budget. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I just have one question that I think I know the answer to, but I want the public to hear it as well. So the trash and recycling is going up, but that's at the same service we have now, recycling every 2 weeks and trash every week, right?
That is correct.
Because it is hard to get other countries to accept our recycling rate. It's just gone up.
Absolutely correct.
So I know people would like to have recycling every 2 weeks, but it's going up just that much without even.
We now, because other countries, primarily China and India, are no longer taking recyclables, the market has gone away.
Right.
So we now have to pay for the processing of those recyclables.
Okay. So disappointing, but I understand.
Can I just follow up? Where are they processed?
So through the chair, the recyclables are processed at the materials recycling facility over on Wood Street. It's the giant blue building that was built. So they're
But where do
processed.
they go from there?
Oh, the end market, I don't know, and it probably changes every day. But E.L. Harvey assures us that they are recyclable in an environmentally friendly and proper manner. So they're recycled, they're not landfilled or trashed. They wouldn't go through all of that processing cost just to put them in the landfill.
If I could ask just one more question, I didn't mean to take your time.
No, that was my only question.
About the recycling. They're not stored on site, though.
Through the chair, I think there's probably some temporary and short-term storage as they accumulate enough to be able to be shipped to whatever their market is. But I don't believe that they've got any long-term storage capabilities there.
Yeah, I don't think so either. That was why I was asking. That they're not supposed to be stored there long-term.
In fact, if I may, through the chair.
Yep.
E.L. Harvey is always very welcoming. We can arrange for a visit to the facility by the board. We've done this with other boards. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Sure. To the chair, have we considered checking the market and any competition or just what is the competitive situation in the market or scenario in the market? Because I'm worried this year it's high and it's almost a monopoly for Harvey. So next year it can go even higher.
When do we renew the contract?
What's that?
I'm not sure when is our year for contract renewal.
Through the chair, we are currently in contract negotiations with E.L. Harvey. There are two major challenges for us. The first is that remember that a few years ago we had recyclable carts and trash carts delivered to every home across town at no cost to the town. If we were to go to another vendor, that cost would have to be part of the contract, which could be several $100,000. The other thing that we have is that we have a recycling site on Wood Street that's on E.L. Harvey property. We've looked before with other contractors or vendors, and they weren't able to supply that in town. So that would be another challenge for us, to be able to find a site where we could host a recycling facility that's not on E.L. Harvey's property.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you have additional questions?
No, I think we'll kind of keep it on our radar as we go.
Through the chair, just two quick things. One, I just want to point out the water rate, the increase for the PFAS filtration and electricity. That line item will drop out once we have a connection to MWRA, right?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay. And then the other thing is, sorry to go back to recycling, but
that's what the public is curious about, I think so.
Well, no. So I have researched and heard several reports about recycling plastic, and What I'm hearing is that most plastic does not get recycled because the cost is too high. While it's possible in a lab to bring it to scale, it generally does not happen, and it gets and it just gets landfilled or joins the islands of plastics floating in the ocean. So, could you get something out of E.L. Harvey as to like what percentage actually does get recycled?
Through the chair, absolutely. We can get those facts and figures from them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that.
I've heard that as well, or found that even though it gets taken away by a company, that the lower quality plastics don't actually end up getting recycled. They go into a landfill, maybe not here in Upton, but somewhere.
A point of clarification. We know, but I'm going to check if it's going to change. They don't take papers, right? Recycling for papers for recycling.
Through the chair, yes, they do. They take paper.
Okay, in all of those recycling.
Yes.
Not shredded paper, I think.
Not shredded paper.
Oh, okay. Didn't we get a complaint a few months ago about papers?
I think she was specifically asking for shredding, that we don't have a shredding site. Or we had a resident email us, and or have we had shredding days? I can't
Through the
remember.
chair, E.L. Harvey does offer free shredding days, I think 2 per year. That was in something that we're negotiating in the contract. But they do not take, as part of their recycled in the bins, they do not take shredded paper.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
Okay. All right, well, there is a need for that, I think, because I do shred all my credit card things.
Do they have any plan to change that, or do you know the reason?
I think it clogs up the equipment, is my understanding, that
okay.
that it can't be in the single stream. Is that?
So through the chair, the way that at the materials recycling facility, it's very automated, and if you have shredded paper, then you're not able to separate the paper out as well. It's very easily blown in the wind, so, and I don't think that the aftermarket recyclers accept that because it's more difficult to recycle.
Okay, Mary Jo, did you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. The water and sewer increases, that is borne by the water and sewer customers.
Absolutely.
Right, I just wanted to say that out loud. So what is, departmentally, what is your overall increase? Is that the 5.8, or where's the total?
So the overall through the chair, the overall for highway, tree warden, snow, ice, and waste collection, that's just under 10%. The water division is 22%, again, primarily driven because of the PFAS and electric costs. And the sewer division is approximately a 6% increase.
This actually says 27 for your water.
So through the chair, the numbers that I just gave you are including employees and wages and salaries.
Okay.
But the individual departments, if you just look at the operational costs, that's the budget impact that you're seeing there.
Okay. Thank you. And then the other question I have is on the backside, is nearly $2 million of capital requests. Can we just understand how that's going to be addressed?
Through the chair, you mean the funding sources?
Yes.
So my understanding is that the reconstruction of Pratt Way and the reconstruction of Mount Auburn and Evergreen cemeteries, that will come off, and those will be debt exclusion. Is that correct, Mr. Camello?
Yes.
The replacement at the bottom, the replacement of the Super Duty dump truck, that is a water item, so that will be from the Water Enterprise Fund. And the others, the 2 drainage improvements, the sweeper, the loader, and the backhoe, those I assume are all coming from free cash. I'm looking at Mr. Kumalo for confirmation.
I believe town manager may not be recommending this street sweeper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not recommending the street sweeper, perhaps.
And the other 2 would come from free cash, Mr. Kumalo?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, next is land use planning and permitting.
I miss you guys. Welcome.
Well,
Yeah, there's a bunch of us up here. It's your future, Gary.
Thank you for having us. I'll start with the operating budget. So the land use budget supports building, planning, conservation, zoning, and other land use-related functions in one collaborative department where we share resources, knowledge, and skills. The majority of the budget, as you can see, is employee salaries, as are many departments. There's no change in the number of positions that are proposed for the next fiscal year. And the increases that we had since last year were due to the pay raises for this current fiscal year. I just want to mention that all are part of three-person salaries are paid from building permit fees, so they're not reflected in the budget, so they are paid solely from revolving funds. With respect to increases, we are asking for an additional $25,000 this year, offset by a few cuts, to fund year 2 of the Shared Housing Services Office that we went to town meeting regarding last year. There's a possibility that the SHSO may not begin operation before the beginning of July, and if that's the case, we can request an extension of the CPC funds that were voted last year, so we may be able to remove this from this year's budget request. However, it will come back next year as we go into the second year, what will become the second year. And then with regard to capital, I'll hand it over.
Thanks, Elaine. So we have 2 capital requests, both related to sidewalks. Just a little bit of quick background. The Planning Board has initiated a broader pedestrian connectivity initiative to help connect neighborhoods and help provide connectivity to many of the town's resources. These are 2 particular locations that we think warrant prioritization. And so we have town meeting articles to support them. So those would be a new sidewalk on Chestnut Street from Wild Road to Smith Road, and then a sidewalk connecting EMC Park and Blueberry Lane. So the Chestnut Street sidewalk provides access to the entire Connolly Hill neighborhood to the existing sidewalk network that goes all the way through downtown. And then the EMC Park to Blueberry Lane provides a really, really nice looping option for Blueberry and Ash and all the streets over on that side of town. Also, potentially some improved access to the schools as well.
So what are the funding sources for the sidewalks? Are they debt exclusions?
Yes.
Or CPC? Okay,
They
debt
are.
exclusions, okay. All right, do any other members have questions?
How far along are you on preparation for this?
For these particular capital items?
Well, Congressman McGovern was here, and one of the things we talked about was sidewalks. And he said, get it in as soon as possible if we have a request. And here we are, sidewalks.
So are we exploring that with first federal grants?
I know that the town staff has made some, I'm not sure of the details of the submission, but I don't know if Elaine, if you can
I
talk
believe
to
there
it.
was a list of potential sidewalks that were transmitted.
Okay.
I don't think these were included in that diagram of sidewalks, though.
It's a good memory, they were not.
I believe EMC Park was.
Oh, EMC Park was.
Chestnut was
Okay.
not.
Okay. Oh, that is a good memory, wow.
I will.
Okay, well, it'd be great
Plan
if we could get a grant for some of them, but I definitely support sidewalks. Okay, any more questions for land use and permitting?
Yeah, the only question I have is, I'm just going to assume that $25,000 annually is going to be a recurring expense once it gears up, or no?
Yes, and it will be proportional to the amount of services the town uses from this regional consultant. So it may go up and down over the years depending on our proportion of the services used.
And CPC funds were used initially?
Correct.
And CPC funds could be used going forward, or no?
It would have to be a request annually.
Yep, okay. And then also, I guess the obvious question for me is that we have a bank of dollars for affordable housing. Is that a source of funding in order to support this?
Thank you.
So the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board has a robust account, and we could use it for that. And in the future, we potentially could use it from that, but right now they're starting to get on their feet as a board and looking to use that funding for actual development of affordable housing. So it could go either way with the SHSO if they get involved in more efforts to increase the affordable housing stock versus just monitor and maintain it. So that is a possibility.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, 2 questions. On the operating one, you have online system or online electronic processing?
We don't now. It's one of our goals.
Oh, that's the goal. But you don't have anything that relates to that goal right now, is it?
We have had online systems in the past, and we were not happy with the vendors, so we are searching for another.
So you are budgeted for that? That's right.
That will be paid from the building revolving fund.
Oh, okay. Well, that would be a good initiative. And I would also suggest check that out with other departments if it can be reusable across. So you do it once and everyone can use it. That would be good. And I also like the loop concept that you have. And related to that on the capital project budget, I think, yeah, definitely if we can bundle it for federal funding, that would be great. In general, I know you have a nice plan and study on sidewalks. How much of that could be covered through this? Do you have a tentative kind of understanding you can give us?
Yeah, we don't know yet. We're still in the process. We actually have we have a public input session that we're planning for next month, actually. And we acknowledge there's a lot of complexities and details to work through here. But, you know, just in working with the DPW, we have a sense as to cost. So, you know, but in the grand scheme of things, we don't know yet. I think to some of the conversations earlier, some of the more complex sidewalk installations, you know, I think those are likely better targets for federal money or grant money, just because they're costs that would be really challenging for the town to absorb. But you know, right now our focus is on getting some momentum rolling here, building out a better plan, and then we can start to pursue different funding options to move it forward.
Thank you.
Through the chair, more for Mr. Khumalo. I mean, if we approve these budget requests, are we cutting ourselves off from applying from the federal funds?
We have a long list of sidewalk projects under consideration, and we have taken the approach that the town will be responsible for some of those projects. So, for example, in this case, simply applying for 2, and we're asking for about 5 or 6 to be funded through the federal or state process.
To extend that, but you wouldn't preclude including it or trying it in the federal budget, even if we approve it and the town approves it. It can always use federal money if it's available.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if the federal government granted all the ones we requested and said they had more, we could try that. Yes, right. Yeah. All right. Any more questions? Are we ready for the next department?
Yeah, I wanted to clarify. There was a question earlier on about the online permitting system. In fact, I see Josh is there. Yes, we are actually looking at all town departments that process permits. Yeah.
Okay. I think we're ready for the next department.
Thank you all.
Okay, so senior
Thank you.
center, senior services?
We will skip the senior center for tonight. Amy is not well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
Okay.
So health services, Board of Health, Health Department?
So, through the chair, our budget process is, our budget summary is fairly simple and straightforward. We, you know, consistent with our goal, we're looking to continue it to improve the baseline health of the municipality. Our increases were predominantly in our salaries.
Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you. Could you move the microphone closer?
Sure. So our increases were primarily in our salaries. We moved a contractor up to a part-time position. Then we had our annual increases, And then we had, so you can see that we had a 28% increase in personal services expenses related to salary increases and the addition of the part-time individual to the salary line item. We had a reduction in our expenses, and then the overall 9%. There were other. We brought on a digital inspection software, so there we have minor charges associated with our inspection software, an increase in our hoarding contract. And then otherwise what we're doing is we're working with, we're part of the Metro West Public Health Collaborative, so we are working with them to find opportunities to bring additional services, bring additional equipment to the town at no cost to the municipality through state-funded grants. And then we've got additional grant opportunities that we're looking to move on. So we might be able to bring some additional savings, all while improving and increasing the level of public health nursing services that we provide to the town.
Great. And no capital budget items?
No.
Okay.
No.
Do any board members have any questions?
All set.
I'm sorry, you may have mentioned it. How did the expense go down significantly?
So we were carrying our senior health agent who works part-time. We were carrying his costs in our. He was a contractor. We were carrying his costs as a miscellaneous expense, and we brought that up. And one thing that we've been discussing as a board, or with the board, is changing the way that we depict our salaries, so our budget, so that it's a little more clear. And
So it was a person who was listed under expenses before, and now they're under
right.
personnel. Okay, so that switches that number. Okay.
I'm sorry, just to be clear, was a contractor, is now a part-time employee.
Yeah, they've been a contractor here for
So
over a decade.
we've essentially changed their status to make them an employee.
And it was a risk reduction step. So.
Great. How many FTEs do we have in the health department?
4. Well, I should know this off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Actually, 3. 3 and then 1/2.
3.5 FTEs.
Right, 3.5.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, additional questions?
Now, just in general, I think the department does a wonderful job. Throughout COVID, you've done a wonderful job. And I see the offering that you continue to do with vaccination and others. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Parks and Rec.
How are you?
Good.
So, excuse me. I found it difficult to tell our story in a slide. And I wanted to wait until I had a nice key data point to share with you before we get into the budget impact. We open for summer programming every year on February 1st. So it's usually our busiest time of the year as far as registrations go. Last year for the month of February, we had 685 registrations for programming. As of today, we have 730.
Wow.
So that is cause for celebration, but also some concern for me. And the reason I want to bring this up tonight is because as we go through the process of building new schools and repurposing old schools and how we're going to go about that, the need for gym space, open space on playing fields, classroom space is not going to go down in the next few years. It's only going to continue to expand. I like to tell myself it's because our programs are so awesome, which I think they are, but really this is, I think, a combination of post-COVID sort of people coming out again.
Exuberance.
Yeah, and I also think there's just a lot of new residents in town that want to enjoy these things, our spaces, our programs, and, you know, that's reflected, and it's shocking to me that on February 7th, we could have 730 people register for programs. So again, celebration and a little anxiety about where we're going to put all these people. So, which ties into a little bit with our vision, which is our ever-expanding cricket community. We need to figure that out over the next few years, how we're going to accommodate our expanding cricket community. And also, we really want to engage our most senior residents. Those are the two things that really, as we sat down to talk about this, it's the one demographic that we've had a hard time capturing. And we try and do things. We had a puzzle bowl, a jigsaw puzzle bowl, which was well attended. We're going to have another one. We're going to collaborate with the senior center on the senior games. So we're going to do all that stuff, but it's going to require space going forward over the next several years. So keep that in mind in your planning. To look at the budget impact, we're an odd department because the majority of our activity, our expenses, don't go through the general fund. They go through a revolving programming fund or the Fruit Street revolving fund. So all of those expenses for taking care of the grass at Fruit Street and maintaining a building and all that stuff, you don't see that in here. The only thing you see in here are personnel costs and some very small operating expenses. We try to keep it under 5%, which we were able to do. You can see on our part-time salaries, there's a pretty significant, I wouldn't call it significant, but it's an increase of more than normal because we're discovering it's becoming very difficult and challenging to hire lifeguards. So we have to offer them more to get them to come. And we also kind of beefed up our head lifeguard position because we want a little bit more maturity and a little bit of an adult down there more often. So we've hopefully have a good candidate for that as well. But as you can see, not a lot of money spent, but a big impact that we think we have on the community. So, you know, John takes care of the town. We try to provide the fun and games with a lot of help from a lot of other departments. So.
All right, so on behalf of my mother-in-law and my daughter, when is the next puzzle tournament?
So we're hoping to do one like in April, maybe, and we're
April?
thinking maybe at the Marathon School Gym because we did have a wait list.
Yeah.
And you were missed. I knew you were planning to come.
I know, I think if they'd had that fourth person, they could have come, they could have won.
I tell you, you got to be on your puzzle game because Amy Beck and her family did a 500-piece puzzle in a half an hour.
Oh, wow.
It was impressive.
That's crazy.
Very impressive. And we got a giant trophy for them. So.
My team, which is only 3 without me, they were 50 minutes, and I think they really think they could have beaten Peter. Wow,
we'll have to see next time.
Next time, yeah.
Yeah, I went to see the puzzle. It was wonderful, and it was very competitive.
Yeah. People take it seriously.
Oh yeah, wow. No joke.
But that's a great way to engage the seniors. I like that.
Yeah, we're trying. It's not easy. You know, it's not easy, but we're trying.
Okay, any other more serious questions?
No, I would just like to congratulate you for coming in under a budget threshold that we are, trying to hone in on. So you get all the props.
Like I said, it's a little easier for us because the majority of our operating expenses go through a revolving fund. So.
Right. So what that means for the general public is your fees cover your expenses primarily, which is...
And we know if we break even, we have it priced right. So we work very hard to keep fees low so that it's affordable for every resident. That's the goal.
Well, congratulations on your programming success. It's
Thank
great
you.
to have a vibrant Parks and Rec program, set of programming.
Awesome.
Through the chair. Yeah, I think the growth certainly shows, your work and service is providing a huge impact. Now, the concern that you expressed, is any of that reflected in the long $300 million list $300 million list that we have?
Excuse me?
The managing kind of the need for the growth in
Yeah,
user
my hope is that if a new school's built, that there's a gymnasium that can accommodate full-court basketball, volleyball, badminton, a variety of activities, and then a playing field, hopefully a playing field that at least could accommodate maybe mini soccer, 7-on-7 soccer, or intro to archery or lacrosse or something. Any space would be great. And the same with Elmwood School. If I know there's no concrete plans for Elmwood School, but my hope is that there's a lot of space there that could be used for a lot of things.
You read my mind. Wonderful thinking. I think that's how we want to start to reuse and synergize all the assets that we're planning.
For sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Just real quick, glad to hear you acknowledging the cricket community and trying to get to that.
They're very passionate. Like I say, it's kind of a quasi-sport religion type of activity.
Absolutely.
Are we good?
I think so. Mary, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yes, Jay.
Okay, Public Library? Okay.
Who is winning the game on the logo?
That's it.
Madam Chair, board members, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you tonight about the public library budget requests. Several months ago, an elderly gentleman came to the library. He had walked to the library from the other side of town, and in his very, very limited English, he was able to let us know that he was looking for a print book and an audio CD that would help him learn the English language better. And so we were able to find the materials that he was looking for in our collection, but we then discovered that he had no library card, nor did he have any identification on him. And so the staff member that was helping him, and I was there as well, we were able to get his daughter's name and phone number from him, and we called her, and she didn't have a library card either, but she said that she would be there within the half an hour, and she spoke with her dad, and she came and she brought his passport, and she brought her license as well, and we were able to get them both library cards, and we also were able to inform them about the English language learning circles that we offer at the library, and several other programs throughout this region. And so that's just an example of how we at the library strive not only to meet the needs of our residents, but to exceed their expectations. Our mission is to explore discovery, inspire exploration, discovery, and engagement to enrich the social fabric of the Hopkinton community. Our budget is very little of our budget is made up from town funds. We are able, very fortunately, to use state aid funds and trust funds to meet the majority of our needs. But the majority of our library budget that comes from the community is for our personnel. We have a 2023 action plan that was approved by the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, and those items in our action plan come out of the strategic planning process that we did several years ago. And in that plan, the community asked for several things, foremost of which was Sunday hours. All of those items that they'd like us to work on, including improving our communication and collaboration with other town departments, other community organizations, getting out into the community more, offering of materials in a variety of formats and languages to identify racism and other biases in the way that we deliver services and in our materials, and to seek community partners, and to add those Sunday hours. Those all come from being able to add staff to the library. Last year, we were very fortunate and very thankful that town meeting approved 4 additional full-time positions for the library, the first of which we're getting ready to hire very soon. Last year's budget, or this fiscal year's budget, funded the head of circulation for a full year, but the other full-time positions were only funded for a half a year. And so the FY24 budget
has an increase in personnel because it covers a full year for all 4 positions. It also includes an increase from 19 to 30 hours for 3 of our part-time positions, and for substitute hours to be able to help us enable to open up on Sunday hours. So I'm very glad that we're able to keep our overall functional request at 0%, but our personnel services budget does have a 12.8% increase, and as I mentioned, that's for those full-time positions that were added, for those 30-hour positions, and also to address inequalities that were addressed in the new classification and compensation plan. So all of the personnel increases are sort of beyond what we can consume otherwise.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so people, I think, will be happy to have the library open on Sunday, so that is a good addition, but obviously it increases the
We're
budget.
working very hard to get those 4 new positions on board so that we can do that.
Okay. Do board members have questions?
I do. And I'm sorry if you said it, that 12.8% increase, what is the dollar value of that?
What is the dollar value? I can tell you that. Hold on.
72,000.
So our salaries went from $784,391 to $884,538.87.
So 100K. Okay. Thank you.
Do other board members have questions or comments?
Through the chair, yeah, I also think that the service is great, and Sunday would be a wonderful addition for the community. And I experienced in some of the events your microphone had some difficulties. Is that covered for fixing now?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Your microphones in the big meeting room?
Yeah, they're not great. Our sound system isn't terrific. I'm in the process of applying for a grant through the Board of Library Commissioners called Access for All. And that grant, should we get it, will specifically address being able to better serve our patrons with loss of hearing and loss of sight, our aging community, and also those on the spectrum. So one of the things that we'll be looking for in the grant is a better microphone system.
Thank you.
Well, that's good to know. Mary Jo, do you have any questions or comments?
I love the library. Thank you. And I do see where the sound system has problems. But basically, I'm pretty satisfied with what goes on over there. Thank you.
Thank you.
I should say, if I can, congratulations, right? There's just a broad array of programming. It's not just books, print, and video. The programming is extraordinary. I think it crosses the age span and the community span, and I really appreciate with a great deal of enthusiasm and appreciation the focus on equity and inclusion that happens every day at the library. It's really, you set a fine example for the town, and we appreciate that.
Thank you. And through the chair, I just want to acknowledge my appreciation for the staff. They do an amazing amount of work to put on that array of programming, and they are aware of diversity, equity, and inclusion at all times.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think we're all set. Thank you. Okay, Youth and Family Services?
Good work, Nancy.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me. So Youth and Family Services, our vision can be just in a nutshell that we're here to help. And we connect to the town vision through building a healthier community and increasing the quality of community life. And I think tonight, as you hear my budget presentation, if you could hold in your mind what these actual services do for people. Particularly if you think about one of our bigger increases is the interface referral service. But if you would picture in your mind a worried parent or somebody worried about their own parent, their aging parent, or somebody worried about a young child's mental health, and they call a service where they have somebody on the phone who can guide them through their options, what outpatient resource they're looking for, and then take on that duty and work on that so that person can tend to their loved one. Hold that in your vision and in your heart as you listen. Or if you could think about the community member that calls the Youth and Family Services Department after just learning about the suicidal ideation that their child is having. And they're met with one of the clinicians, myself or Sarah or Colleen, and we guide them through next steps and how to work with their child over the next several weeks until they're connected with a warm handoff to ongoing therapy. Or think about the family that has had a loss, an economic loss, and they're struggling to make ends meet. And they meet up with Colleen Souza or Sarah Randall doing case management in our office, and they're connected with a host of resources that help them hang on and keep a roof over their head. So that, rather than read every single service area to you, is a big part of what we do. And the other part is funded through grants, which is our prevention department. And we just had 3 young people return from Washington, D.C., where they met their senators and talked to them about substance use reduction in the community for youth and what they're working on. We have a growing youth group connected to the Hopkinton Organizing for Prevention Coalition. And so all of that is sort of what's going on behind the scenes and so much more. Our strategic goals are through the engagement of town departments and nonprofit organizations to create a unified community trauma response action plan for this next year, to continue to grow and build the safety net in the community so that community members can recognize when somebody's struggling and give a warm handoff to care. And we'd like to formalize the structure of our own programming so that there's regular, dependable things that the community can engage with. And also share the work of our department and collaborators through a regular newsletter to build awareness, information, engagement, promotion, education, and connection to resources. Something that is not just a static document, but something interactive. And we're well on our way there. For our budget, you'll see an 8.4% increase in our personnel costs, and that reflects 2.75 staff positions. We have another 1.25% of staff that are fully grant funded. So it's just the 2.75 that the 8.4% increase is in, and that was because we hired somebody at a bit more than what we had budgeted for, and then we also, with the compensation plan adjustments over the last year, built equity with the existing position in the department, as well as just the basic inflationary costs tied to salary. And then with our contracts, we've had a major increase in the interface contract, and last year's budget didn't reflect the increase we actually had there because their billing comes in just after we do our budgets, and they came in with a huge hit for us, much more because of the utilization, because the community knows about it and is using it. And so it's increased $10,000 this year, but it had a $5,000 bump that wasn't accounted for last year that we found other funds to cover. And then you can see the regular expenses in that line item are $25,000 for Project Just Because to increase food access to our most vulnerable residents. Casebook is our electronic records management system that we have to move to for legal and ethical reasons. And then there's a therapy dog. I don't know if you've met Rebel, but Rebel is all over the community, and kids get quite a boost, but also senior citizens, folks at the library get to spend some time with Rebel, particularly around difficult circumstances. And there's good research that tells us that this is very useful for folks to access a deeper level of service and care. And then we have our consultation, and we have a clinical consultant work with us on our more complex cases, and MindWise behavioral health screens. And then there's like a whole bunch of smaller charges. If we bring in a contracted person for a specific cause to run a specific group, and those ongoing costs. So we had a huge increase. A lot of that is pushed by Interface and then by some of the specialized services that we offer. Most things stayed static, but Interface went up, and our casebook system is a part of that as well. And then our community events and presentations nearly doubled. And I put that in there this year for a reality check. And I did so because we often, we are very well looked out for by Senator Spilka, and we often receive funding that we get roughly in January and have to spend by June. And it's usually a lump sum, and we can, we tend to know it's coming, but all of our programming then is crammed into a 6-month period of time, and it becomes very difficult to serve the public that way in a consistent, stable way. Do I expect we're going to spend that $15,500? I don't know. I wish I could tell you, because the way our funding works is that we get revenue that comes in, and when we get that revenue, we offset our costs and we return quite a bit to the general fund. So it really does matter with the very fickle way that things are funded sometimes with grants and with those specialized grants that go through BSAS and the Bureau of Substance Use Services and through DPH. We're just never sure what we're actually going to get. So I budgeted for what it might actually cost us to bring in the caliber of people that people want to be trained by and everything. And so our other operational costs just went up very slightly, just for mileage, because as COVID goes away, people are driving and doing more and going to more meetings and that sort of thing. So our budget impact is large. It's 6.3%. But again, this may be reduced due to other revenue that's coming in, whether it be opioid settlement funds or it be those grants that tend to hit the community around January, or other grant funding that we've received. When I've looked at our revenues overall, we almost match in revenue what our budget is. And so, and with that, we bring in prevention staff, prevention programming, and can offset our budget ask. And so we're still working on a few of those grant programs to determine, how I could show you all that. But yeah, so that's us in a nutshell. Do you have questions?
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have questions or comments?
I have a couple. You said 6.3%, but it's 16.3%, right?
Oh, did I say 6? Is that?
So maybe I just heard it. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
So first, you do amazing work. I'm a social worker myself, I think you know, and probably you have done this a little bit in your professional life. You always know where you're referring to people to before you make the referral, because you want to make sure that they're going to land someplace where they'll be taken care of. And I find myself recommending that people reach out to your department all the time. So that's a measure of my confidence in you and the experiences that we've had for residents and for people in need, and it's really powerfully important. The one question I have is it's always super challenging for any municipality, any governmental agency to spend money that arrives, that is, this big amount of money. The abatement funds. There's a proposal out from the state right now for the opioid abatement funds to try and help people figure out how to leverage those funds, right? So municipalities, how to spend that money to their best advantage and build a system that works. Is there any way where there's a consistent consistent level of support from the state to plan ahead and pay forward for programming is, no, you
We have
already.
to use the money by June 30th, and it has to be within the fiscal year that we're in.
The programming has to happen at the same time. So it's
we
really
can't.
a 6-month window. So
It really is just that 6-month
Yeah,
window.
yeah.
And so what we do is we do plan. Like, we don't just like think, oh, maybe it'll happen, maybe not.
No,
But
no,
We
yeah.
say, if this, then this. And then, so we have 2 different action plans running. And then what we've really been using that money on is psychological first aid training for the community, active bystander training for the community. Those things have been very exciting, but they're costly. And so they're not cheap. And so, and then mental health, the Mental Health Collaborative has done the mental health literacy training for us. And so all of those cost. Now, we bring in a lot of free trainings, too. We tap a lot through the Department of Public Health, the Department of Mental Health, and through the Bureau of Substance Abuse Services. And because we're grant funded through them, we get so many wonderful free trainings that residents can go to, or we get connections to other towns that invite us to theirs. So there is a real wealth that comes in besides the dollars that.
I think maybe then just saying it out loud to the board members, maybe it's a question to the legislators to, ask them to think about the ways that they put the parameters on there. Because wouldn't it be great if you could use that funding for, I know it crosses fiscal years, but if it could cross fiscal years, wouldn't that be something? Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't, by the way, mean to suggest you didn't plan.
No, but it's like, people do ask, like, you get this money in, and do you, and it's, what I do want the community to know and be aware of is that, like, we don't take a dime that we don't use, and if we can turn back, I have a real value. I've done this work for a lot of years, not here, but in another community. I have a real value on not asking the taxpayers for more and to try to find those grant dollars that can offset the expenses that come their way. I know we're a small operation in the grand scheme of things, but it still matters to me. And so, and again, I heard my colleague, shout out to her staff, and I've got to say I've got the best. so between Colleen, Sarah, Cassandra, and Lauren, they're wonderful, and they're doing some neat stuff with kids through a giant blow-up mega brain, that they tore kids through so they can see where in the brain substance misuse can impact them. To so many different things. So we're just really, really fortunate to have a good team that cares about the community well and continues to innovate. So any questions?
No, through the chair. What you do is tremendously important, so thank you for all the good work. I did see the contract numbers went up significantly. I think you touched on it. I didn't fully process it. Can you repeat that?
Oh, sure. It's really the interface contract because of the utilization. And so they went through a process of their own where they started to really put a true value on the product they delivered. And so that was a year the contract went up unexpectedly to us, that they were going through their own process. And then they charged a certain amount per intake, right? Per, connection they make with a resident. And we've just seen our numbers continually climb. And so the value of that service is that they have a huge database, and they know all the insurances that a clinician will take. If we were to do that on our own, we could never do the rest of what we do because it takes so long to figure all that out. So that's why we contract out for that.
Thank you.
Sure. I'm glad people are using the service. I think that's a good sign. Yeah.
That's a good problem to have. I think.
Yeah, but we're the weird department that, where the more we grow sometimes, the more the costs go up because people are utilizing the services. So.
Okay, any more questions? Because I think we have 6 more departments to do.
6 more to go.
And it's getting late.
Thank you very much.
That's all right, I can ask.
You can ask, okay.
Another time.
Okay. What's that?
No.
I said no fish taco.
Oh, yeah, that definitely will not be. Yeah.
Good evening. I'm going to start talking from slide 56 of 83 on your deck. So, and very briefly. So the finance budget includes the town treasurer, collector, the assessor's payroll, and my position as the CFO. The department's strategic objective is to support fiscally sound, open, and fair local government. We really have goals in two areas: efficiency and effectiveness in our business processes, and then good analysis to support your decision-making and decision-making by department heads and other leaders in the town. In FY24, there's three things we want to move forward on: continuous improvement in business processes. We're going to leverage technology to improve the quality and resilience of our processes, and we're going to continue to develop the financial dashboard that supports transparency and decision-making. So you can see how they all work together. On the next two slides, 57 and 58, we have a table that shows the key department functions, and it includes discussion of our cross-cutting quality improvement efforts. Performance outcomes and impacts on the chart provide a good way of thinking about the relative risk and importance of the things we do and about the value proposition that we provide for the town. To get to the money slide on number 59, we have no capital requests. Next slide, please. There you go. No capital requests. We have no new service level starts. The table shows finance with a budget increase of 5.1%, exactly at your target guidance. After a drop of 1.4% last year in FY23. So we try to perform our functions, all the functions we do for the town, for less than 1% of collections, and we're under that this year. We're at about 0.93% of what we're collecting that we consume in the taxation and collection process, in the financial planning and analysis process. On salaries, we had 4 people, and the reason we're at 5.1 and not lower, we had 4 people in our department, half the department, come up to new floors in the reclassification plan you approved in July. So that puts some strain on our budget, but we're happy to be able to stay within the 5.1% target. We have 1 vacant position right now, the treasurer collector. Interviews are in progress, and we achieved a few efficiencies up there by squeezing down some budgets for supplies and conferences. The other big line on our budget is assessor's appraisal services, which we have at $182,000. So that's a large amount of money. We use contracted support for tax rate setting. We have contractors for analysis, tracking, and audits of business personal property, highly specialized work that we don't want to hire and retain the staff to do. And a big chunk for technical and litigation support to defend our tax appeals, which are now 100% with Eversource. The good news is only 1 position turned over last year in our department. We're controlling costs. We're supporting a growing town with the same size staff by improving our processes. And we look forward to continuing to do that. I could give you a little update on the Eversource situation, but I think maybe another day. Given what you have on your plate tonight.
No, thank you. That'll be helpful.
Thanks.
Unless it's a big good news.
Yeah, unless it's good news. It's quick good news.
Well,
yeah.
we haven't received their appeals yet. So the filing deadline was the 1st, and we don't have them yet. So the next time you see me, we'll either have them or we won't.
Okay.
And if we don't have them, that'll be great news.
Yeah.
All right. Did anyone have questions for
Knock
Tim?
on wood, right?
Came perfectly in budget.
Yeah, nice job, by the way, coming right in on time.
Leading by
on budget.
example.
If they haven't set a deadline, we can deny them for late filing.
They may have filed, but we just don't know, I think, is the possibility, right? All right, accounting and procurement.
Good evening. So the Accounting and Procurement and Grants Department is in charge of compliance, assurance, and auditing of all town departments, committees, and commissions, as well as the enterprise funds. The goal of our department is to make sure that the town meets its long-term and short-term financial outcomes. We are responsible for filing the tax recap, setting the tax rate, Schedule A, and also for certifying free cash. We are a department of 3 full-time FTEs, and my budget is very straightforward. We have, you may see, an overall large increase. However, the main budget impact is a 23.6% increase in salaries, and that has to do with personnel, and that is with filling vacancies and filling them at the highest step rates. And there is one line item that was not funded for FY23, and it's miscellaneous other contracted expenses, and that is for our OPEB valuation services. And it was taken care of for FY23 with a carryover purchase order. So there's a 100% increase in that line item. However, it was funded in 23, and evaluation will take place. Are there any questions?
So there was no increase in FTE, but just increase in salaries because of the level people were hired at?
Correct.
Okay. Do board members have questions?
No, just for the public, I would say the 100% increase is $8,500. So in some ways, it sounds way worse than it is.
Yes. And the bottom line looks way worse than it is, seeing a 55% increase. However, there just was no budget amount for FY23 for the miscellaneous other contracted services.
Through the chair, who do we use for OPEB review?
Elmer Parker.
Any more questions or comments? No? Okay.
Just one note that I will make, we're also, responsible for coordinating all the audit services. So our outside auditors will be presenting the financial statements on February 28th.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, IT.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The primary strategic goals and opportunities before the IT department are a more robust transparency center, maximizing the town's investment in our electronic document management system, implementing a standardized e-permitting system, and then continued focus on cybersecurity, which includes ongoing awareness training for all employees. Our requested FY24 operating budget is submitted at $1,104,054. This represents a budget increase of $81,497, which is 8%. We've found a $37,100 decrease in our technology services line item. And this is due to cost containments through contract negotiations, found efficiencies during spending reviews, and our ability to decrease funding in line items while still delivering level-set services. This savings opportunity is offset by mostly inflationary and growth areas with no new starts proposed for FY24 that would impact the operating budget. Some of our biggest cost drivers that are impacting these areas are our Google Productivity Suite licensing, our antivirus licensing, our EDMS licensing, internet and phone system expenses, cellular and wireless growth, adjustments that were made to Hopkinton's salary administration plan, and public safety IT support. We have 3 capital requests for fiscal 24. $92,851, which is for end-user computing hardware refresh. This is our ongoing program yearly. $54,350 for the last of the PD camera replacements and upgrades, as well as some expansion at Town Hall. And then lastly, $38,170 for Phase 1 of 2 network switching and Wi-Fi upgrades that would impact all town buildings. Phase 2 of that is projected to be $40,500 in fiscal '25. Any questions?
So let's see. The electronic document management system, is that going to be coming online soon? Or I think you were reviewing vendors before.
Very soon.
Very soon, okay. Because I literally talked to a friend who was very tech savvy through it the other night. She could not find the minutes, and I had to talk her through. You have to hit the reset button and then don't use keyword search. And
it almost seems intentional that they're so hard to access.
So we're very much looking forward to the new system.
Very soon.
Very soon? Okay.
Very soon. And we've got thousands of minutes and agendas that have already been ported over to the new system.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that's amazing.
And yeah,
Okay. We'll be looking forward to
exceptionally
This
close.
is the magic of inheriting a system that you would have designed differently if you had been in charge.
Yeah, we're really excited about this.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, overall, I understand the expense increases. It's really important to do that cybersecurity training. So many towns are getting hacked or ransomware, and it's really important that we stay on top of that. And, of course, keeping our network up to date. So, anyone else have questions or comments?
No, I think this looks all good. Just in general, I think we exchanged emails. Are you planning for a submission for the state or federal funding for special projects?
Yeah, so that's something that we're always mindful of. We did receive funding recently for the IT Community Compact Grant, so that was how we funded, or actually how we will end up essentially ultimately funding more than half of the EDMS project. So a lot of that was done through the grant funding that we received, and you're not able to apply for that IT Community Compact Grant 2 years in a row. So there's a cooling off year, and yeah, so we are mindful of that and looking at opportunities that how we might be able to do that again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All set. Human Resources?
Thank you, Josh.
We have Maria on Zoom, I think. She might
Can't
be
hear
ready.
you.
Can't hear you.
Budget's denied.
Okay.
No more HR department, is that what you're saying? Good luck.
more.
Yeah. Where's the IT guy?
We can see Maria in her slides, but we cannot hear her yet.
Is it on her desktop maybe?
It's funny, it was working earlier.
We had her on the phone before.
She could be muted at home.
Yeah, we have, it looks.
No, okay.
No, she's not muted.
This is what happens
Can
when
you
we
hear me
ignore-
now?
Yes.
Now we can hear you.
That's why
Great.
Good thing you're here.
Can you hear me now?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So my budget presentation is that all people matter. I want to go right to the heart of the matter, and all people matter. So we want everyone to belong. Thus, we want an inclusive and diverse workforce and environment. We want everyone to grow. Thus, we have plans for employee advancement and opportunity through the competitive merit promotion process. And we want to measure that progress of town employees' work and experiences. The HR department strategic priorities. The first one is well in alignment with the select board. which is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. We're heading toward immersion now. So that's a big goal of our department and of the town. Employee advancement and opportunity, which also has a DEI initiative within that through succession planning, and then employee engagement and retention. To that end, the HR department budget, as approved by the town manager, is 1.4% and well below the threshold. Personnel services, we have 3 full-time staff and 1 part-time staff. A part-time staff member that's shared with the town clerk's office. The expenses were level funded, and the town manager, I believe, will talk about the compensation contingency fund. And that's it for me.
Okay, does anyone have questions or comments?
I just have a question about what the percentage increase is in personnel services.
I apologize, I didn't put that up, did I?
I don't think so.
Give me 1 second. Let me pull up my budget.
It says 0, that's not it.
It says with the exception of personnel services, the budget is level funded.
Yes, it is 6.2.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? No?
I'm good.
Yep. Yeah, just a follow-up question on that through the chair. 6% on personnel, but overall you're 1.4%. Is that right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I was just gonna say, I like the photo of all the town staff on the common. That's really nice.
I do too.
But at the same time, though, it doesn't comply with, like, a slide like that you can't really read very well, so it doesn't, for diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging, someone with vision issues can't see it. So I don't know if there's a way to balance that next year. And I don't know. Anyway, it's very
Yes. Yeah, no, thank you very much. As I say, it is a journey and we're all learning together, so I did take that seriously. Even just recently, we learned that justifying documents, which I like because they look pretty, are not easily, because of the technology, it's not easily readable. So I've done away with justifying, so I will take care of that for next year as well.
Yeah, all those little habits that we all have to change, and I know I do some of them too. Okay.
But it's for the best because it's inclusive of all.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And I really do like the photo, though. Maybe we can get that on the website somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That'd be great.
It was in last year's.
Was it in the annual report, or?
Yes, it is.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I think we're all set?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, have a good evening.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
All right, we're up to town clerk. We're getting close.
Exactly. Almost there, almost there.
Almost there, 2 more.
Thank you all so much. I'm really fortunate that I get to go near the end because I get to say how lucky I am to have all of these fantastic people behind me.
There you go.
As well as the volunteers I work with, like yourselves. I very fortunately, and as you can see from, and most of you know from my department, my office has a lot of hats. From election administration to records management to licensing dogs. We do a whole lot of different things and touch a lot of people's lives in different ways. And so what we're always looking to do is always look towards improving that so that we can improve transparency in the community, as well as ensure that people can see the integrity that not only our town departments work with, but also all of our volunteers that stand on boards and committees. So, right now what we're looking at in the coming year is there is a slight increase when it comes to our staffing. Like Maria had said in the last presentation, we have our staff member that was approved last year, and then we combined it to a full-time position to try to make it a little bit more equitable so it would actually have potential for benefits out of the same type of workload. And then we had to just kind of balance it and bring it back up to that. And the only other major changes there are just going to be around regular increases, including the proposed increase to the salary of elected officials at a town meeting, as well as for additional training for our new assistant town clerk. We didn't have the opportunity to send her to some of the really great training opportunities that we have for clerks regionally during her first almost year, just because of the timing and because of the backlog of people joining those programs from COVID. So other than that, we're really not seeing much increase other than regulatory and inflationary when it comes to the town clerk side of the budget. So with elections, we see, as I say every year, and as some of you are probably sick of hearing from me, it's like a roller coaster. It goes up some years, down others, and I always try to make sure that it reflects that so that we're not seeing the budget just kind of stay level and then have to go up a little bit more each year on that. I think it's important that the community has an opportunity to take advantage of those funds when needed. So our initial request had been to try to only be a 0.08% increase total across the board. However, we were informed that the elementary school building committee was intending to request a potential special town meeting and special town election, which then resulted in a significant increase in our need for staffing hours for poll workers, which is why it actually had gone from an anticipated amount of initially 12,920 to the 19,565.16 that you see there. Mm-hmm. So we did see a roughly 51.43% increase from that. But unfortunately or fortunately, that's the reality. Elections have to be paid for. We need to make sure that we keep the process going. We did make sure that, initially we were hoping we could kind of get some more stuff online for, improving election technology. However, we didn't want to have any more of an impact than we were already anticipating. So the goal here is to ensure that those necessary functions move forward.
And then, so for elections, so even if we have a special town election for the new school, you still have to have the periods of early voting and everything, right? So that's more than it used to be?
Yes. So that is anticipated in the cost here, and that's also with minimum wage increases. Sure. So we've seen that minimum keep going up. For the last year, it was just a half year of it. So now we're on to the 15 until the legislature decides to up it again. But in the meantime, we are seeing that. So we're anticipating right now running at the current amount of staffing that they're requiring. It could change, but at the moment, we're seeing 2 weeks for biennial state elections, 1 week for the primaries. So we're anticipating that as well with the presidential primary coming up. Right now, there's still no requirement for us to do early voting in person for locals. However, it's going to be offered as essentially an opt-in type method where the towns have to decide if we want to pay for that. And right now, the system when it comes to mail-in voting for locals is going to be an opt-out. This current budget reflects us not opting out. It is the select board's prerogative, but we are currently not opting out of early voting by mail during the local election.
So opting in.
So no, it's
but, okay.
So no, so for by mail, it's opt out.
I know, but just when you say it in the double negative, so we will be having by mail early
We will
voting.
be having
Okay.
voting by mail, yes.
Okay, great. But the early in-person, we may not be having for local elections.
Correct, at
Okay.
least for the time being.
Okay. I'm sorry, does anyone else have any questions?
Just one question through you, Madam Chair. Your total overall clerk and elections increase in percentage is about 6%?
For the whole 2024 change for the election, or for just the clerk part, or the
No, combined.
combined?
Clerk and elections.
4.3.
Oh, okay. My math was off. Thank you.
Very welcome, thank you.
Anyone else, or we're good?
Just want to make a comment.
It's under budget, that's good.
Yeah, but they're very busy in the office right now because it's census time, and everybody has been mailed their census, which of course does cost the town money.
I brought mine
And
tonight.
if you don't return it,
I'm just going
it hurts.
Your tax dollars at
Town.
work, folks. Why, thank you.
It hurts the town in their ability to get money from federal and state government. It goes by population and a few other things. So if you want to really help the town, get your census in as soon as possible.
And through the chair, thank you to the vice chair for pointing that out. It's really, it is so vital for us to get that data because it helps all departments when it comes to looking at grant funding and how the population has grown, and even for the schools when it comes to planning for how much enrollment they're going to see.
Definitely. Okay, other questions for the town clerk?
Nice job.
No?
Your office is
Yeah.
always busy.
Thank
and
you.
budget
Always,
is under.
We're, I like to say, better busy than bored.
Thank you.
Okay, now the town manager, which includes select board budget, so.
We have a budget?
I was
It's
looking for,
photocopying and whatnot, right?
I was looking for a personal story to introduce the different budgets managed by our office, and Select Board gave me one, namely giving your census forms to the town clerk's office. So if anybody wants to hand in their census forms, please reach out to the Select Board. They will hand them over to the town clerk's office.
Happily.
Yeah.
Happy to extra service.
Yeah, I think overall, the work that is performed by the town manager's office as well as the select board exemplifies our practices, norms, and perspectives of care, engagement, communication, and transparency. And we do so in various ways. And what I'll do is to jump onto the budget numbers right away, beginning with the select board.
Well done.
0% increase.
Zero.
Good job, everyone.
Great job.
Can we cut some?
You make your
We may-
donation now.
Yeah. Team is noting, we may defund the select board.
Yes, you know what?
Yeah. And then the town manager's office budget, which is 123, the overall increase, do you hear this team? 2.8%.
Wow.
Nicely
Well
done.
done.
Yes.
Good.
And then legal services,
2.8.
exactly 5.1%.
Be darned.
Perfect, okay.
What cut down the expenses by 10,000? Just curious.
It's a lack of expenses for, how were you able to save on office expenses?
Yes, what we're doing is we're going to be paying for some of the expenses in FY '23.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we've paid for.
Gonna prepay some things.
Yes.
Okay.
And then town hall budget 0% increase.
Nice.
Animal control only 3.9% increase. And then the big budget, employee benefits and insurance. Insurance benefits right now, we're still in negotiations for the health insurance. We're projecting an overall increase in our combined insurance benefits of 9.6%. Reduction in the Middlesex County retirement, minus 1.2%. We, as you know, are reinforcing our drug and alcohol testing. We are projecting a 5.1% increase. And then the blanket insurance, given everything else that has happened in town, our projected increase is 7.4%.
How did the retirement went down? I know it's a variable and kind of.
Do we lose people?
Sometimes goes up.
How did the
sometimes-
retirement go down for Middlesex County?
The retirement, how did it go down?
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
People can't hear you
we
at
had-
home if you don't come forward.
sorry. So we had great plan experience in terms of the returns the plans made, and then we actually had some actuarial benefit. We were funding more rapidly than required to meet the target, so they adjusted our contribution downward somewhat, so we'd stay on plane to hit the target.
Okay, well, that's nice.
Little piece of good news there.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim. And then our other general government services, we are level funding the transfer to the water enterprise, audit services, town reports, and public relations.
Yeah,
Well done.
Okay.
Sound good?
There it
Next
is.
slide, there it is. Yeah. And then on the compensation contingency, as Maria had reported earlier, we had increased our compensation contingency funding in FY23 in light of the multiple contract negotiations, as well as the non-union staff employee increases. We are bringing that down to the level that we have had in past years prior to this year.
Okay. All right, does anyone have any questions or comments on the town manager and select board town hall?
I don't think so.
Yeah, what do we spend our 2,000 on as a select board? What does that go to?
Yeah, the MMA
Photocopying?
registration for the board.
Okay.
Oh, the MMA membership.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all set with that?
Yep.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And let's see, and then,
And so, question for the board is, at your last meeting, there was some discussion around inviting the school department. I just wanted to make sure, I left that meeting thinking we were not going to do that. However,
That's totally fine. I just, I'm not sure how we're going to dance this dance next meeting, right? How we're going to get to them.
will we potentially maybe have a joint meeting again, as the season progresses? Because we still have a gap of $1 million.
yes, our thinking is we will continue working on a solution and at some point bring the select board, the school committee, and appropriations for a meeting to have a public discussion on the solution.
So let me just review our timeline here. So we're here in February. When do we send the budget to appropriations?
It's
So March 14th, we adopt the budget and submit to appropriation. Okay, so we still have another month to maybe some numbers will change. So do we need the school committee to come here, or is it okay? Or it's okay with me if we just wait and have a joint meeting if necessary, closer to when we need to vote the budget?
I totally agree.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good.
So
And then-
can I ask a practical question, though? That $1 million that we're trying to figure out, where are we, and maybe you can't answer this tonight exactly, or possibly you can, but what is the number that legitimately puts us in a place of sustainability going forward? Is that without finding that $1 million, or is it more than that $1 million, or what is the budget position that we can legitimately stand on that suggests sustainability going into the out years?
Oops.
We don't have that number yet. However, as the budget review process unfolds, we will define that healthy way forward for both the operating budget as well as the capital budget.
Yeah, that's really sort of the conversation that I'm interested in having.
Definitely looking forward to that one.
A very good point, through the chair. I think we need to see that connection now that it's coming together for this year and future years. And I remember Tim's projection or CFO office's projection shows up to 3 million and upwards gap in future projections, right? So kind of understanding what our sustainable picture would look like going forward and how we can look at that. And another thing that came in that, and I asked him, I believe, and also Susan, is that the school budget projection does not include all the variability that we already know or can project to some extent. Then we may have a little more tuned and robust future scenario. For example, we could use the student growth picture as an input to many other capacity growth, teacher growth, and other growth, so that we have a consistent view what the future would look like, and then connect it with our capital budget spending, our debt inclusion increase, so that we can plan better, essentially, is the bottom line. And the debt exclusion, I think we also discussed how can we collectively, maybe we'll need to discuss how can we prioritize those items and place them in a cadence that is more palatable and manageable.
Manageable, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting points. In fact, I'm thinking back to the comment you made when we were discussing the REC, where you were referencing cost savings. Similarly, with the discussions we're having with regard to capital projects, there will be operating costs associated with those capital projects. Yep. And we're trying to find a way to bring that understanding into this conversation.
Yep. That's so important because we, not to pick on the schools, but we build a new school and we have to operate that new facility. And it isn't lost on anybody. I'm not telling anybody anything they don't already know. Center School hasn't been resolved, and Elmwood School will be the next school that hasn't been resolved.
Yes. And in fact, you may recall, we have also said that the 300 million number did not include Center School, did not include the impact on the water customers of the MWRA connection.
The 300, tell me again what the $300 million number is.
It's the number that we've put forth relative to the capital projects that were identified at the time we put the budget together.
For the next
5 years, right?
Yes, 5 years. Yes. Yeah.
And what are our current estimates for the school replacement project? Because I think that they're north of what we were thinking.
We just received, for tonight's meeting, an updated cost estimate. I have not reviewed that closely. I don't know if you have. It came this afternoon.
Oh, yeah. No, I think they're still processing it. I know today they're having the traffic engineer to evaluate the traffic situation and how it can be managed. Expert opinion, basically. But yeah, there will be some tuning coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, so we don't have that number. They circulated something this afternoon. Yeah.
You can't look and see what it is?
Okay.
I mean, it's in your email.
Yeah.
This may sound kind of silly, but it happened to us when we've just built one of the new schools. Just before it was going to open, we were told they didn't have any furniture, that they had forgotten to write into any of the plans, the desk, the chairs, the blackboards, and we had to put out, I don't know, millions.
I thought that's been
So
rectified,
to-
that now it's included
To
in.
then put the furniture in the school, but I just want to make sure it's there, because it wasn't, and it wasn't that long ago.
Which one?
Did that happen here, Mary
The new
Jo?
high school, was it the new high school?
Was that here?
Huh?
Was that here?
Yeah.
Which school?
I don't think it was-
Anyways, yeah.
For the-
Yeah, it happened.
Sorry, hold on, wait. Sorry. Can we give the answer? So I believe in Marathon School, they were all included in the cost that we paid, and I would
It was.
assume that that is the
Yeah.
case for
Yeah,
that.
and I
I
actually
had
don't
mentioned that
remember Hopkins or the high school
I don't-
having
right,
that
I don't know
issue,
about
but
that.
Doesn't mean
But I don't know.
We did have to go back to furniture.
Okay,
Anywho, it is 9:30.
okay,
Hold on.
the hour is very late,
Hold on,
so.
I'm getting my answer.
Okay, do we have any liaison reports or board invites?
Here's a report.
None from
Just the same, that I think the 14th, the
ESBC is moving
ESBC
along,
vote,
yeah.
and we are to vote on the 28th.
Okay.
And meantime, the public forums came about mainly looking at the configuration question, which the school board has voted on.
Yep.
And the traffic for the sites. So,
So the school board voted on the grade configuration of 2 to 4, for anybody who didn't see, there was a news article, I think.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and then they did a good job also explaining it in some of the forums and with the teachers too. But there are still sessions going on that.
Okay.
And then for the, as for the traffic, they are bringing more experts to kind of explain how it's going to be
Okay.
managed. And a lot of focus on communication, and we'll hear from them too.
That's great. We did get an invite recently to the multicultural night at the high school tomorrow night, I believe. That's a new thing, and I think it starts at 6. I don't know if it's an open house thing or if you have to come and there's an agenda that you sit through, so I'm not sure.
I missed that in the email.
I think it just came yesterday, maybe?
I didn't see
We
that.
got an email, I think, or I'll forward it if you didn't get it, but it's at the high school. But I think because it's new.
What time is it?
6.
6, yeah.
Well,
Is it
that's kind of
food?
fun. I
Yeah,
appreciate
food and performances, I believe.
Sorry, Muriel, this is a 93-page document.
Oh, okay, all right. I get it. You can't just like Google $300 million and say, so Google, find the dollar
Find.
sign.
Okay, and then, are we done with liaisons and invites? or-
So I am going to the Eagle Scout ceremony on Sunday on behalf of the board. And also, I do have a meeting with the new chair of the Youth Commission and Don next week. I do know that we get another resignation tonight, and
Yeah.
another one is coming in to us to consider next week.
Oh, yes, I
so.
saw that. Okay, so
So,
she was here tonight, I know, but had to leave, so, I think, wasn't she?
Who?
Isn't Ava?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't see because I was late, so
Oh,
maybe.
I thought she was here, but for the youth services budget, but she had to leave, I think.
Okay.
I think maybe I'm mistaken which student it was, but.
Well, I don't know, but at any rate, the Youth Commission, is a bit in flux and so forth, so I just want to encourage people who have an interest in a really important role for the youth of the community to contemplate jumping in. We'd love to see some new faces. We have some new faces on the commission, but there are spots, and it would be nice to see a couple people with that kind of enthusiasm and energy and time to step forward. So encourage people to look at that opportunity.
And
If I may?
Oh, go ahead.
In addition to, if anybody is interested in joining the Youth Commission, please drop by Town Hall, speak with the staff. They will explain exactly what the commission does. It's a relatively new field of work for some people here in town, and therefore I think it's important that we educate individuals who are interested in joining the committee on the responsibilities.
What they'll be doing, yeah.
What they'll be doing, yeah, absolutely.
And if this would be for future agenda items, if they would like to request a change or modification to their charge, we could review that too, I know, because there's been a lot of change recently.
Yeah.
Okay, is that set for board invites and liaison?
As far as I
Good?
know, yep.
Okay. For future agenda items, this just reminded me, our discussion, and it's for far into the future, but I think it would be good to have an idea of what we might possibly do if if the site for Elmwood School turns out to be the one on Hayden Row, it would be good to have, before we vote on the Hayden Row, some idea of what we might do with Elmwood School property. Like, not that we make a decision, but that we have a plan to make a decision.
We struggled with that for Center School.
What's that?
We struggled with that for Center School. It's
Yeah.
part of what hung the vote up, not the entirety of it, but it's part of what hung the vote up the first time. It's, we do have to have a plan for those facilities. We own them, and we're responsible for them, and we need a plan for both of them before we make shifts.
And I didn't know if for the Elmwood site, it's possible it could just be sold and then we'd have some revenue.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a future discussion, I guess.
In fact, on that, if I may, we have had some discussions at staff level and also broached the topic with the Permanent Building Committee Chair. Namely, there are actually 3 properties of interest in this regard: Center School, Elmwood School, and Fruit Street. Why Fruit Street comes on board is the master plan that was set for Fruit Street was set several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, there are uses that have been added to that parcel. And I think taking a comprehensive or holistic approach to understanding whether there is a coordinated strategy that can be implemented in addressing the future uses at those 3 locations may be a way to go. And the Permanent Building Committee may be the entity that the board talks to make sure that that happens. And in addition, we're also emphasizing at the ASBC 2 meetings that the lesson learned at Center School was that as part of transitioning a school from a site, there's need for that committee that is working on that to identify exactly just the bare minimums required to keep the place running. We didn't do that at Center School.
Right, yeah.
Right.
I'm glad you brought that up. I was concerned, and still am, that the money we spend in maintaining Center School, and it's going to tickle over now Elmwood School, and that's not a small amount if you do that for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, like we have done for Center School.
Yeah.
So something we
But-
definitely need to address.
Just keeping it on, keeping the lights on,
Yeah.
keeping the heat on.
Heat on.
The heat on has been.
But I do wonder, and I know it's not on the agenda, but like, for Elmwood School, it's not in the center of town, not the beautiful historic building. Possibly, we don't need to keep the lights on, we could sell the property to someone, I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, we can't decide that tonight, that's.
Okay, anyway.
Certainly not.
That's,
But a
we have to hear
plan
from the
would be
public.
nice.
Chair, I move to adjourn the meeting.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Yeah. Okay, very good.
How's that new baby?